Designated sessions back in order. Now I want to recognize the gentlelady from Barragata. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon to my colleagues. And so the first amendment I would like to proffer basically amends the bill to read, if you look down on one, go down to, I'm sorry, I'll just read the whole thing. It reads, public notice as used in this chapter means a publication by newspaper of general circulation or by another eligible media platform which is reasonably calculated to provide notice of the facts it announces to the local public at large, which is independently verifiable, and by electronic publication in the Guam Public Notice website. As used in this term, newspaper of general circulation means a newspaper which has been licensed to do business on Guam for a minimum of 5 years, is printed and distributed not less than once a week at regular intervals throughout Guam, which has paid circulation and holds a valid second-class mailing permit from the United States Post Office, and which contains news, articles of opinion, features, and other matters of current interest published for public dissemination. A newspaper licensed to do business on Guam, which publishes an edition electronically no less than once a week, also qualifies as a newspaper of general circulation for the purpose of this section, provided that the newspaper also meets the other requirements outlined in this section, and to allow legal and clerks to make technical corrections. And so one of the things that I was concerned about with the original language of the bill was that it set the threshold of 15% of the population as meeting the requirements for reaching the public at large. And to me, what's more important is the public at large, local public at large. Because as we know, when we start moving over to electronic media, we also get visitors from the States and international visitors. And so it's critical that we're informing the local population, or at least prioritizing that in this public notice. Because we could end up not really notifying the majority of the public, but although it may look like it. And so this really undermines the purpose of open government law. And I wanted to strengthen it. If we are to modernize our public notices, that we ensure that the local public is notified, and this is a part which is independently verifiable. So we want to verify that we are reaching the people here on Guam. The other thing that I was concerned about this 15%, because as you know, there are newspapers here that cater to specific audiences. So for instance, like the Stars and Stripes, for instance, can you imagine with the military buildup and we receive more military members, and let's say the 15% is satisfied by those living within the fence, yet the general population does not receive the notice. But it's under this particular bill, it would still comply with open government law in words, but not in spirit. And so again, the purpose of open government law is to ensure citizens are notified and have consent of what the government does, not a specific part of a population. And so I think when we start to identify percentages, although I know it had good intentions, there is that underlying potential for it to actually have the opposite effect. And so this amendment really was trying to address that 15% and ensure the local public at large is notified, and that's what the purpose of this amendment. Again, this is in the spirit of compromise, right? Because as I said in my opening statement, that this is a big controversy nationally, and we need to be sure that what we're doing is not going to harm what's in place already, and that we're walking to this with open eyes. And I ask for my colleagues' support, or to make it stronger if necessary. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the amendment, on the amendment? Are there any other person wishing to speak on the amendment? Okay. Gentleman from MIPAN, you are recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon to my colleagues and the people of Guam. I think the most valuable lesson that I learned from my first term is how to listen. How to listen to ideas, to speech that I don't necessarily agree with, but respect. Because each and every one of us was put in here by the people of Guam, by voters who want us to be their voice in the people's house. And that's a very valuable lesson, because people who do not listen are not leaders. Leaders must listen to the ideas they support and even the ones that they don't, out of respect. So, and also don't appreciate talking down to the people of Guam in such a condescending manner. So I just pray that we all be mindful that good leaders listen and participate in an exchange of ideas. And Echo, I don't know, I ought to check this microphone. Is it working right? Because I thought I argued my points articulately the other day, but I'm not sure if it's coming out as noise. So is this thing on? So Mr. Speaker, on the amendment, yes, sir. Thank you, Sidus Masi. I support the amendment because what this bill, as I said earlier, does is it purports to support transparency and accountability for our government and our people, but it does exactly the opposite. And what the bill does in requiring that any radio or television station or website must be a component of a company that is licensed to do business on Guam to be an eligible media platform. By doing this, the bill arbitrarily excludes the Guam Public Notice website as an eligible platform for public notices. And the Guam Public Notice website serves as an official online repository which provides a record for public notices, something that most social media does not do. And this ensures transparency and accountability for all of our people. However, under the language proposed in the measure, because it's not a commercial media company, it would fail to meet the eligibility criteria despite its primary and I would say sacred function being the publication site and the repository for all of our people's government's public notices. Now, the exclusion of the public notice website raises several legal and policy concerns, to include an inconsistency in our people's access to these public notices. The Guam Public Notice website was created to centralize and streamline access to government announcements, making notices freely available to the public. Removing it as an eligible platform contradicts the purpose of open government laws. The exclusion also raises the concern about unnecessary restriction on public information, as the requirement effectively limits public notice publication to commercial entities, reducing the number of platforms available for government transparency. Lastly, the exclusion of the public notice website raises potential legal challenges if certain notices are only published through private media companies and not through a dedicated public notice system. It raises due process concerns, especially in legal matters like probate cases, foreclosures, and government rulemaking. So I commend the good senator from Barragata's amendment in that it reinstates the Guam Public Notice website and also addresses some of the inconsistencies and some of the new language in the bill relative to newspapers. And I don't know if it's appropriate, Mr. Chair, but doing the math on this, the bill seems to exclude the Guam Daily Post as a eligible media platform, and I would just rise to a point of inquiry if the author of the bill was that the intention to exclude the Guam Daily Post, or do they think that the Guam Daily Post meets this criteria? Because just based on my read, it does not.
Would the author yield to the question?
Mr. Speaker, I'll go ahead and answer that inquiry. But based on this legislation, we're talking about expanding and reforming, not taking away. No, it doesn't exclude because their website qualifies. And he can have a different interpretation, but my answer to that is no. And I would like to rise to a point of information also, Mr. Speaker, but he still has the floor. I'll wait till he's done.
Thank you. Are you done?
If the good senator from Pago Bay, Manila has a point of information that will add to the debate, I would certainly take a pause on my floor time to allow her to make that point. If not, then I could continue.
She wishes for you to continue.
Okay. Sidus Masi. And so the amendment proffered by the good senator from Barrigada also addresses some of the concerns I had about newspapers of general circulation, as the proposed measure defines newspaper of general circulation to mean a, quote, newspaper which has been licensed to do business on Guam for a minimum of 5 years, has a minimum number of readers, subscribers, and or website visitors equal to at least 15% of the most recent population of Guam reported in the decennial census conducted by the federal government. The proposed measure also defines an eligible media platform to mean any local media company, including newspapers with electronic editions, news websites, television stations, and radio stations that are licensed to do business on Guam. To qualify, the platform must have been operating for at least 5 years and maintain a minimum audience equal to at least, again, 50% of the most recent population numbers reported by the census. However, the language in both sections is overly broad and lacks clarity. While it sets the minimum audience threshold and defines a specific time frame for maintaining the 15% requirement, the omission creates ambiguity. Should media companies meet this threshold annually, monthly, or at a specific point in time without a clear time frame, the requirement is vague, inconsistent, and difficult to enforce. So again, I commend the good senator from Barrigada for doing her due diligence and proffering this amendment. And I'm very thankful for the opportunity that she gets to proffer this amendment, as it is a tried and true part of the legislative process. So, Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you again for the opportunity to talk this afternoon.
Gentlelady from, before you get to your point of information, can I ask the proffer of the amendment? There are 3 different amendments that look exactly the same. Can you please clarify for the body which amendment that are we addressing? Because the information that was provided by the gentleman from EPAN appeared to be a different amendment. So which amendment are we dealing
Yes,
with?
so I did read it out. It is, I understand how confusing it is. It took me that long during recess to really kind of tease it out. So I understand the difficulty. So the way it was, I submitted it, it was by, so SFP line 16 to 27, page, should have been page 2, and then line 1 to 9, page 3. So according to this, how it's printed, corrected by the clerks, thank you. It's AB 25 SFP L 16 to 27, 1 to 9, P 2 to 3.
That's the amendment we're on right now.
Yes, that's correct.
The time is 1:58, timestamp 1:58 p.m.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you.
Okay, colleagues,
So
to you.
it has a timestamp of 1:58 p.m.
On the top left.
Mr. Speaker, both amendments are based generally on the same page. Why don't you just do a recess, have a
Excuse
merger,
me, I
and
have
be
the
done with
floor.
it?
I have the floor. There's a method to this, so that's why there are 2 different amendments. And one is timestamped 1:58 p.m. AB 25 SFP L 16-27 1 to 9, P 2 to 3. So I think the easiest way is the timestamp, 1:58 p.m.
All right, we're going to dispose of this amendment first, okay?
Thank you.
All right. Gentlelady from Pago Bay, did you want to bring your point of information now, or you want?
On a point of information, Mr. Speaker, this bill does not take away from the public notice website because the website does not satisfy the 5 and 2 day notice requirements. This is what the bill reforms. And I also want to say that the requirement to publish on the website is a separate part of the open government law.
Thank you. On the amendment, timestamped at the top left, 1:58 p.m. On the amendment, are there any other senators wishing to speak? It is timestamped 1:58 in the top left. Okay? Are there any other members wishing to speak? Senator?
Mr. Speaker, you said it's at 1:58 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
We're entertaining that, but we're not entertaining it at 9:47 a.m.? On the top left? Top left corner, no natin like the 9:47? And that's why I'm saying if you allow the recess, let them just merge them together and be one amendment. I'm going to look at the 157.
I understand what you're asking for.
Okay, thank you,
Okay?
Mr. Speaker.
I understand what you're asking. Okay, but we've already started on this amendment. Okay? On the amendment. All right. Gentlelady from Jonia, you're recognized.
Mr. Speaker, and I just want to clarify as well. So on the amendment, I'm looking for the double underlines or the double strike-throughs, but that we are doing 3 things. We're adding the word local, announces to the local public at large, and we are moving the words independently verified analysis and putting it up earlier to say, which is independently verifiable. And then we are deleting the requirement that there be a minimum number of readers, subscribers, or website visitors equal to at least 15% for the newspaper of general circulation. Because right now, the bill is requiring that newspapers of general circulation have this 15%. And I guess if I could ask the sponsor of the bill if she would yield. And the original bill, when it says has a minimum number of readers, subscribers, and or website visitors, how is this going to be determined? And like, are we going to add them together? You know, sometimes one article gets visits, but the site in general may not. How is this going to be counted? Is there a standard if the author would yield? The author of the bill.
Will the author of the bill yield to the question? No, hang on. You're asking the author of the bill, or the author of the amendment?
The author of the bill, because this amendment proposes to strike that through.
Right.
And so I just wanted to know.
I'll answer that, Mr. Speaker.
Sure.
You know, they can be added together. Total audience, including readers and website visitors. There's a train for that. There's a train of thought for that. And know that this was a part of the markup.
All right, well, thank you. I guess that to me is one of the issues. It's not very clear how that is going to be counted, who gets to count that, and then when it says independently verified analysis, who gets paid to do this independent analysis, if I may ask the author of the bill?
No, we're on the amendment.
But the amendment is to delete that.
I know, we're on the amendment. That's a legitimate question.
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to answer that again.
Sure.
I'll yield to that. Whoever the company contracts, and that should be easy, and usually a Google Analytics reports can be obtained, and it's free.
All right, Cesar Masi. So the answer is that all these companies, they're going to hire their own person to independently verify. And I'm not sure, that doesn't sound very independent to me if we get to hire who we want to. I just wanted to know if there's some kind of standard in the business, or there's some kind of business that does independent analysis of these things, because that's why, I worry, because we talk about likes, followers, you peek at something, doesn't mean that that's your normal source of information, or that is your regular source of, especially public government information to you. And then, but I totally agree with the amendment that adds in the word local. I think I've seen that. I've tried to search in different federal statutes, and that is really the goal, is that it is published locally. That's why they say local newspapers a lot of the time. But calculated to provide notice of the facts it announces to the local public at large, I think it's good. Because if we're talking about websites, I was thinking about that too, that means we could really publish on any website. And not even catered to Guam. So I appreciate that part of this amendment, which is independently verifiable. That just moves the language from further down up here, which I'm okay with, but I'm not confident that there's such a thing.
Point of information, Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, if I may. I just want to say that the bill says website visitors, not likes or views or impressions, just to make that clear.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Ma'am, you continue.
Yes, thank you. This is, again, they're talking about, in this one particular paragraph, newspapers of general circulation. But in another paragraph, they use very similar language for eligible media platforms, subscribers, viewers, listeners, visitors. And for me, those other platforms, that's exactly why this question. It's like they can get a like on one article, thousands of people, and then not looked at again. I just don't find consistency in this. However, the author is saying now that the 15% will not exclude any of our printed media currently. Will this as written include then, for example, the governor does her own newsletter, and if she prints that once a week, we're gonna rely on that for our publication of government notices?
Is that a question? That's a question for the author of the amendment.
The author of the bill again.
No, well, it's underlined here. This means it's new language.
Correct, but no, this part is because they're proposing to delete this 15%. So,
Mr. Speaker, I'm going to yield to that again, because apparently she has a problem really understanding.
Mr.
No,
Speaker,
it does not
I'm
include
asking
the
a question.
governor's
I don't
newsletter.
have a problem.
Mr.
I don't know
Speaker,
what that's
it does
all
not
about.
include the governor's
Okay,
newsletter.
enough. Thank you. Go ahead.
Repeat the question?
What was the?
Yeah, the question is, so we're saying newspapers now can be a minimum number of these many readers, and that they are they only need to publish once a week electronically, and they will qualify as a newspaper of general circulation. aimed to provide notice of the facts to the public at large. This sounds to me like it would include newspapers issued by, for example, the governor, I don't know, Stars and Stripes, but these kind of, they're non-daily, I don't know. I just want to know that those kind of, can I issue my own newspaper, and is that going to qualify here? And if I publish it once a week, electronically?
Will the author of the amendment, because that is apparently we proposed an amendment to the bill. Will the author of the amendment yield to that question? The author of the bill doesn't need to, because this is the author amendment being proposed. Author of the amendment, you yield to that question?
I'm asking if the author of the bill would yield, because...
The author of the bill doesn't have to, because this is not the author's...
Well, it's the
bill
bill as
author's
written
amendment.
that has those things in it, and again, the amendment is proposing to delete some of that, and so I'm trying to make sure the bill as written, if that's going to qualify, and then whether I support this amendment or not.
Why don't we do this? We're going to take a break, 1 minute break, ma'am, so you can look at, it is an amendment being proposed by the good gentle lady from Barragata. The gentle lady from Pago Bay is not proposing this language. It is the gentle lady from Barragata. I'll give you 1 minute to go ahead and consult with her. 1 minute recess. back from recess. Gentlelady from Joni, you stay off the floor.
I'm trying to remember. I think my question, Mr. Speaker, was whether this amendment would allow newspapers printed, for example, by the governor's office to qualify for that. And I guess that depends on, I think they already qualify under the bill. So would this affect that?
And you're asking the author of this amendment to yield to that question?
Yeah, if they are already qualified under the bill, regardless of this section or not.
Would the author of the amendment yield to that question? No author of the amendment, would you yield to that question? This is your amendment. Would you yield to the question?
I'm making the point of inquiry, though.
Yeah, your point of
Yes,
inquiry.
I'm asking if the author of the bill would yield.
But that's not language proffered by the author of the bill.
Well,
That's
the
language-
author of the bill continues to make points of information, so this is an information that I believe is relevant as well.
And the point of information should be directed, and the yield question should be yielded and directed to the author of the amendment. That language is not proffered by the author of the bill. This is proffered by the author of the amendment.
Right, but the impact on the bill only.
Why would the author of the bill, she didn't write this language.
She wrote the part that says that a newspaper which publishes an edition electronically no less than once a week also qualifies as a newspaper of general circulation.
No, she didn't.
Yeah,
ma'am,
that's-
if you look at that, ma'am, it's got underlined. Why would it be underlined? It'd be underlined because that's a proffer of the amendment.
No, it's a single underline. That means it's what the proffer of the bill is offering. It's not a double underline, which is what the proffer of the amendment is suggesting.
Okay. In the proposition is to strike out language would basically make the justification by the author of the bill irrelevant. So it would be the author of the amendment. The reason why she is doing this, she's striking it out.
Point of information.
What's your point of information, ma'am?
Yeah, so I think the percentage is really difficult to arrive at. I feel that it's arbitrary at this point. I mean, the testimony provided by PDN, they asked for 20% of Guam's population. And so, and here we have 15%. So I don't understand I guess the rationale of the difference, and
The rationale is if you strike out the 15%, it no longer has any percentage.
right. So I mean, that's the point I'm making with my amendment is, how do we know a percentage when it seems arbitrary? And to me, what's most important is the at-large part. So instead of focusing on the number of individuals that are reached, we want to make sure that it's a broad, it's disseminated broadly. And to me, I was uncomfortable at saying 15% when even the testimony asked for 20%. And in my view and the research that I've done, this is a very touchy subject nationally because depending on who you listen to, there's bias. there's bias involved on who's going to benefit from these things that we are determining. And so I think that this is a conversation, a dialogue that needs to be had. I don't think this bill's, I feel this bill is premature because we haven't answered those questions. And I was really trying to figure out a way to make it better. But even at my attempt of proffering this amendment, honestly speaking, is, you know, I don't think we've reached a point where we can satisfactorily say that we are going to satisfy open government law. So be that as it may, I think that that's what I believe, but I don't know about this particular section. I just wanted to, I guess, address this particular point. Thank you.
Does that answer your question, Senator Tulay?
That is helpful, Mr. Speaker, but I still have a question for the author of the bill. If this removal, as proposed in this amendment, it's going to differentiate newspapers versus electronic newspapers, websites, the other media that they're proposing to allow, electronic editions. And so I'm asking, would removal of this language, as proposed in this amendment, affect the ability of the governor's newspaper to qualify?
Mr. Speaker, with all due respect to you, I'm going to yield to that question because I really am flabbergasted about this line of questioning and what we're doing. But I really just want to say, because we are making changes to the definition of the newspaper, but not the changes, changing the second-class mailing permit, which the governor's newsletter does not have, it's not included. But again, she knew that answer.
So they would qualify under electronic. And thank you, Sisos Masi. So again, I see this amendment is trying to focus us on, right now, newspapers. Make sure that they reach the local population. Make sure that they are independently verifiable, but we found out that this independent analysis is going to be from a separate entity. However, it's not unbiased because it's paid by that newspaper. So I just can't see how we're going to get real independent verification at that point. And it looks to me like also the intent of this, I'm not speaking for the author, but it may be to ensure that our only printed newspaper continues to be a source that we can turn to for printed publications as mandated by the courts, as mandated by the federal government and others. And if so, are they going to meet this 15% criteria? Now, I know that was asked earlier, but I thought the numbers made it sound like there's either 16,000 or 18,000 total that they're right. And
Mr. Speaker, I don't know if it's a point of order, a point of concern, or I'm just trying to understand. Are we talking the amendment or are we talking the bill?
I'm being interrupted, Mr. Speaker.
No, I've asked the speaker to recognize me. If he does, then so be it.
We're talking on the amendment. She's still on point.
Okay, okay, could we
Thank
see
you.
me talking about the bill?
I don't know what's not clear here. So the bill is saying only newspapers that have 15% of the readers on Guam is going to qualify now as a newspaper that we can pay to publish ads as a government. And earlier the question was asked, is this going to disqualify our only printed newspaper that's printed on a daily basis, the Post, the Daily Post? And the answer I thought I heard was yes. But I want to verify those numbers because 15% of the 2020 census is 23,000. And so if the author of the bill would repeat the numbers that she stated earlier as to how many, if you combine the print circulation and the website, is it going to qualify?
The author of the bill.
without removing these lines here.
Mr. Speaker, I will yield. And no, it does not disqualify the posts with their subscribers and website visitors. They qualify.
What are the numbers, Mr. Speaker?
Point of information, Mr. Speaker, if I may, point of information.
I thought I heard 16,000
But,
earlier.
yeah, in fact, that's why I'm doing a point of information, because I was the one that mentioned it earlier. I took the time to call the Post to find out what their readership was. It was said by the author of the legislation there was 8,000 readers. I did call and I
didn't
asked
say
about.
point of order.
Excuse me, I'm speaking.
Point of order,
I'm
Mr.
speaking.
Speaker.
I'm
The
speaking.
gentlelady from Tamuning has the floor.
But
Thank you.
I
Thank you,
rise to
Mr.
a point of
Speaker.
order.
Thank
Please
you.
proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I mentioned, I did make the phone call to find out, to make sure how much online readers they have to ensure it, and they told me it was 8. So the number that people are trying to figure out here was a total of 8,000 plus 8,000 online. It's a total of 16,000. Mr. Speaker, that's my point of information. Thank you.
On the
Thank you
point of
very much.
information, Mr.
Now
Speaker.
going to the
Thank
gentlelady
you,
from
but
Pago Bay.
again, based on that, it is, what I mentioned was 8,000 printed copies.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker. So, yes, I guess this is one of the concerns, and it's clear now that the language in the bill right now requires that they have 23,000 subscribers or readers, subscribers, or website visitors. The Post, the only print newspaper that we have right now where our government notices are being published, is 8,000 print circulation according to the sponsor of the bill, and 8,000 on the website, totaling 16,000, which is less than the 23,000. So it seems like a very clear attempt to remove them from being paid advertising for the government of Guam. So I know that this amendment might requalify them, and many, many other people. Yeah. So I'm just trying to make that clear, Mr. Speaker, because like I said, I have concerns about the bill. I think the amendment makes it clearer that we will not be excluding the only printed version of the newspaper, but I don't know who we are allowing in exchange for that, and but expanding it to local public at large instead of public at large, I think is an excellent amendment. And the independent verifiable, that's already been in the bill and just moved around. For me, I still have the same concerns about that will not be unbiased. And we really aren't going to know, especially since my earlier amendment for the reporting failed, then we will never know really as to what impact we are having and where our advertising dollars are going overall, and which media is actually most effective for Guam. And I think that's the goal if we want public participation. So I thank the author for the amendment. Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On the amendment, the gentlelady from Tamuning, go ahead. You are recognized. Thank you.
Sijus Masi, Mr. Speaker. I too, have great concerns, because the whole purpose of being able to reach our public, to notify them of important information, like when we're having a public hearing, when a law that's going to be introduced and spoken on, and then if it passes, a law that they would have to comply with. So the importance of having this the ability to have public notices in every avenue we can at this point. And like I said earlier, it does make it difficult when some people don't have access to internet still to this day, and hopefully soon that will change. But yeah, the 15% may eliminate quite a bit of people, but the biggest part is that how do you police this? It was said earlier, I could be mistaken, but I think I heard something earlier where it's the company's going to hire somebody and determine those numbers and then give it to who? The whole bill is very unenforceable. It's almost like saying, anybody, you guys can do this because, you know, nobody's going to police it, nobody's going to monitor it, so it doesn't matter, and they're going to have to prove it. Is that the kind of legislation that we're introducing in this term? Bills that have no enforcement? So this is very difficult to enforce, to determine this 15%. So I do stand in support of this amendment and ask my colleagues to consider that part about putting legislation through that has the teeth it needs to enforce. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. On the amendment, any speaker, senator wishing to speak on the amendment? Gentlelady from Barragata, you want to close?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate the dialogue regarding this amendment because, as you know, as I've stated before, that this is there's a lot of controversy when it comes to modernizing our public notices, and so again, we have to be very careful about how we move forward. And I just wanted to tighten up the language that the bill provided to ensure that we're reaching the broader public at large and not disenfranchising inadvertently a population, and hopefully to take out biases as much as we can. I think that's really the aim of this amendment. And I appreciate the dialogue and for my colleagues listening. It's Masi, and I hope ask for their support.
Thank you very much. On the amendment, are there any objections? There's an objection. All those in favor of the amendment, time-stamped 1:58 p.m. All those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by raising your hand. Amendment fails. Gentlelady from Barragata, I recognize that your subsequent amendments are all contingent upon this amendment passing.
Point of information, Speaker, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, so I have the clerk is correcting it.
Ma'am, but
to make
it still indicates language that the assumption was it passed. What you should have done was combined it all together in one amendment.
Yes, so I believe.
And so because this amendment failed, the language on your next three amendments cannot be considered.
Can I ask for a moment's recess? Because I believe the clerk was in the process of fixing it.
I'm going to make the ruling on it because you cannot. This amendment failed. These three amendments move.
Yeah. Yes, correct. So if I can, I still have time, don't I, on the floor?
Yes, you still have time.
Okay. So.
How much time is it? You ran out of time already. Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to yield my time on this amendment to the fellow speaker.
It's Masi.
Okay.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Yes, so in conferring with the clerk, I believe they were in the process of amending my amendments, and I would like to request a recess for that to be passed out.
Thank you very much. However, your request to the clerk was in the midst of already deliberating the amendment that was initially proffered. Had you stopped the debate on that amendment, you withdrew your amendment, and then proceeded with a new amendment, that would have been accepted. But because we've already ruled that this amendment is no longer failed, it makes your next three amendments moot.
Can I point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker? Is it possible to amend the amendment?
The amendment failed, ma'am.
Sorry. So I have an amendment 2:08 p.m. So these are all three different amendments, and I believe I still have the option to amend my amendment. Sorry, I'm amending the bill, Mr. Speaker.
1 minute recess. Keep the lights on. We're back in session. After conferring with the clerk, because your First Amendment had already failed and your subsequent amendment that you want to introduce, okay, contains language that the body has already decided against, it makes your amendments moot, so therefore your amendment will be out of order. That's my ruling.
Mr. Speaker, is it possible to ask for a recess to correct the amendments that I sent in, or send a different amendment in?
Ma'am, you want to move forward with your presentation because your time was yielded. Any request for an amendment, or unless you move to reconsider, overrule the
Okay.
presider?
So I do have a new amendment, Mr. Speaker.
What is the new amendment?
So if I can read it to my colleagues.
Where's, no, the standing rule is basically your amendment has to be in writing.
So I would like to proffer an amendment that has not been printed yet.
Ma'am, the rules, and it's very specific with the rules. Amendment will be considered in writing. Okay? I gave some leeway in the previous, but this has been dragging.
Yes, so it may ask for a recess so that it is in writing.
You can do this in 1 minute. I'm only going to give you 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute recess.
This is Mossy.
Legislature's back in session. Senator On, good gentleman from Tumulia.
Yes, point of order, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like for you, Mr. Speaker, Frank, a little bit of humor there, Mr. Speaker, but I would like to determine whether or not these amendments are out of order because it wasn't submitted on a timely basis based on your instructions. I just want all of us to be on the same page, because these amendments keep coming in, and you gave us the instructions in regard to a timely manner in submitting these amendments. So it seems like we're going around and around, and we're not getting anywhere. So if you can determine that, we can move on to other things. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In difference to the instructions that I gave earlier, I also gave the individual some time to be able to provide the amendment. And the time it was not, I don't see it on my desk, so therefore we'll move forward. Anybody else wishing to speak on this amendment? On the bill. On the bill. Wishing to speak on the bill.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
State your point of order.
Jesus Masi, the proffer of the amendments had passed out several different versions because she could not predict what the first version or first amendment, whether it would pass or not, as you stated earlier. And the version 2:08 p.m. is very different from the version 150 something or whatever, yet you're not allowing her to proffer that amendment. It changes up there on the words radio or television and another eligible media platform. Those changes are different. The bottom, the archives public notices in print and digitally is very different. And I just think we're not allowing her to make an amendment on a bill again, and I don't understand why we are going to censor that. Like, she's trying her hardest to have it in writing. It's in writing. You're just not allowing it, so you're forcing her to rewrite it in 1 minute. She's trying to get advice from the clerk as to what is wrong with this format so that she can fix it better. I don't know. It's a very complex issue, so I don't see why we can't allow that. And the amendments are actually written and in front of us as well.
Thank you. Your point of order is noted. We're moving on. Anybody else on the bill? No other person, no other senator discussing? Senator from Talafofo, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, may I rise to a point of order? Excuse me, colleague. The profferer of...
Senator from Talafofo, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Senator from Talafofo, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 25-38 as amended.
I do not want to interrupt,
I
but
would
point
like
of order,
to-
Mr. Speaker. Before we move on to the next speaker, the proffer of the amendment still had 6 minutes or so left on her time. She still has the floor, Mr. Speaker. She has the ability to close on her part of the bill.
Senator from Talafofo, you recognize.
Thank you. I'd like to continue if I could, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to start with this. I have an aunt who lives near me in Talafofo. She gets the newspaper every day. She, like many Manamco we know, have the same routine of subscribing or grabbing a copy from a nearby store, gas station, or restaurant, and read about the news of the day. For this bill, that practice is under threat. It won't slow down anytime soon, I'm sad to say. As an adjunct instructor at the University of Guam, I have a lesson on mass media and social media as part of the Fundamentals of Communication course there. Since 2019, I would ask the question of our UOG students, where do you get your news and information? In 2020, at the height of the global pandemic, the students that braved the threat of COVID-19 face-to-face answered that they got their news and information from KUAM, the Pacific Daily News, the Guam Daily Post, Talk Radio, CNN Online, not the cable broadcast itself. In 2021, I asked the same question of different students, same course. The answer, the Point Talk Show, KUAM, and surprisingly, Instagram. In 2022, same question, but overwhelmingly, nearly 99% of my students shouted out TikTok. In the heart of an election cycle, mind you. In 2023, same question. And I got KUAM's Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, the Point Radio Show in the morning, the Guam Daily Post. In 2024, just like in 2022, TikTok and Candid News. A few votes for the KUAM IG for the most part. 2 semesters per year. As you can see, the answers swung in a very interesting way from our college students here in Guam. This bill is to add and define an eligible media platform. With the provisions of Bill 25 as amended, I find comfort in knowing that a television channel where the broadcast content is controlled or determined by the government of Guam, its branches, agencies, instrumentalities, or public corporations is also an eligible media platform, particularly as I've learned since the beginning of this particular term that there are residents across our community who tune in to the Guam Legislature channel to watch a public hearing, an oversight hearing, state memorial services, and even this first regular session of the 38th Guam Legislature. And Mr. Speaker, some of these individuals, particularly our Manamko, well, have become, in my observation, regular viewers of the Legislature channel and who remain engaged through phone calls and emails, commenting and or inquiring further with my office and perhaps with some of my colleagues that are in this room regarding a particular bill or issue, to include the one that we're talking about today. Mr. Speaker, in 2025, the days threaten newspapers of general circulation and radio and television. This statute will help to clarify where our people in 2025 get their news and information. Some Manamko you and I know are starting to try out the platforms mentioned by the great UOG students now. Smartphones are great. They take good photos too, Mr. Speaker. This bill modernizes access to public information that started, guess what, in 1975. There have been some changes to that statute in that time, albeit very few. This is part of that effort. While some in this room might resist, but to modernize our collective ability to keep our people in the know. 50 years, how so much, Mr. Speaker, has expanded. I'm supporting this measure as I want to be a part of modernizing this important statute. But just a few more things if I can, Mr. Speaker. In the public hearing, I asked about violations of the law as we see today, and the answer was very few. Today, we have few resources. Mandates are surely taking care of that. Our agencies in the executive branch, our sister branch of the judiciary, and us here will be able to reach just as many residents with this change to law. Our website is good, and I do mean pretty darn good. So is the Guam Public Notice website. This bill is not directed at social media. It is at the mass media businesses of Guam to get out the word. Businesses that are following the law will be able to assist each and every one of us across two other branches of government as well. They still will, even when those in the room may feel that they don't do us any favors. And I got to tell you, I've been on the other end of that more times than I can count in other areas. Eligible media platform. It's a modern push for all of us. 50 years from now, we might have to do the same, meaning a future legislature and another proposal on this issue. I stand in support of Bill 25, and I thank the author for the work that has been put forward on this, including the markup, and I thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the time today.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, any other? Good Senator from Barravata, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand today in strong support of Bill 25-38, introduced by the Senator from Manila, Pago Bay, because this measure reflects the kind of progress and modernization our island deserves. The bill does something simple but important. It expands how public notices can be distributed by allowing them to be published not just through traditional newspapers, but also in electronic newspapers, qualified news websites, and other eligible media platforms. To be clear, I understand the bill does not remove the print option. Newspapers of general circulation remain a fully valid method for posting public notices. What this bill does is it acknowledges that we live in a digital age, and we should be using every available tool to keep our people informed, including the internet, radio, and television. Now, unless we're trying to mandate that we only put public notices in print and limit ourselves to one outdated channel, then, Mr. Speaker, this bill is just common sense. Mr. Speaker, we know more and more of our people get their information online, whether it's scrolling headlines on their phones, watching the news on social media, or visiting local websites. This reality of how people stay engaged, the bill simply says, let's meet them where they are. Now, there's something important that I want to address that has been said continually today, something that's very important. The suggestion that our Menumco may not be able to access these digital notices, with the utmost respect, I must say that narrative is outdated, and frankly, it's insulting. You know, during lunch, I had one of my aunties call me and say, you know, you guys need to stop acting like we don't know how to turn on our phone and we don't know how to go to a website. It's very insulting when the senators continually try to use us to say that we need to continue to keep Guam where it's at because we don't know how to use a computer, we don't know how to use a phone. Stop, it's insulting. During the pandemic, we saw firsthand how our elders adapted. The government and our community as well worked very hard to provide digital education in the villages, at the community centers, and even went door to door. The Menumco were not left behind. They stepped forward. Today, many of them use smartphones, they Facebook, they WhatsApp, even some use Zoom to stay informed and stay connected. Do they still value print? Absolutely. But to suggest that they're incapable of using digital tools is simply not true. And it discredits the very outreach that our government and our people have empowered them and worked so hard to provide as a community. The bill respects everyone by keeping print while embracing new platforms that reflect our current reality. It increases access, it enhances transparency, it reduces unnecessary costs, and it keeps our government in a step with the people we serve. Mr. Speaker, I commend the Senator from Manila, Pago Bay, for her leadership on this effort, and I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Let's modernize our communication without leaving anybody behind. Susan Masi, Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker.
Point of information.
I didn't want to interrupt, but the previous speaker said this bill does not remove the print option, but we just verified with the sponsor of the bill that this bill will remove the print option. The only print option that Guam has right now does not meet the criteria in this bill.
Thank you very much for the point of information. Any other senators willing to speak on the bill? Senator Max, oh, you spoke on, you gave up your time. Her amendment failed. She wanted the time to proffer another amendment. So that was, no, it wasn't. It was time on her bill. Okay? Sorry. Thank you very much. Any other senator wishing to speak on this bill? Author of the bill, you're... Okay. Good Senator from California, you're recognized.
So just want to see Mr. Speaker. And thank you again to the people of Guam for watching. A lot of people watching today. Sidos Masi. Hope you're having a good day. I just kind of wanted to start with just some technical analysis on the bill and then go into my comments. The proposed amendments to Chapter 8, Title 5 GCA, seeking to modernize the public hearing notice requirements by allowing government notices to be published in electronic newspapers and digital media platforms instead of, or in addition to, traditional print media. The amendment expands the definitions of newspaper of general circulation and eligible media platform to include digitally published newspapers and media companies with significant local audience reach. While the bill intends to enhance accessibility and efficiency, what it actually does, my dear people of Guam, is present significant risks to Guam's open government law by potentially limiting access, reducing transparency, and concentrating media influence in a few dominant players. I want to reiterate that Guam's only print medium will not qualify as an eligible media platform because of the phrases in the bill equal to, at least, are redundant, as at least already implies a minimum, while equal to suggests an exact number. For example, according to the 2020 US Census, Guam's population was 153,836, meaning an eligible media platform would need to maintain at least 23,075 audience members. However, without specifying whether this number must be maintained continuously averaged over time, met at a single point, this provision lacks tangible enforceable criteria. The lack of precision could lead to inconsistent application, legal disputes, and potential exclusion of media organizations that fluctuate in audience size to market changes or seasonal variations. And so I did inquire with the author of the bill whether or not the Guam Daily Post would meet the criteria laid out in the measure, and the answer was yes, but I think just based on my public school math here, the answer is actually no. The Guam Daily Post will not qualify as an eligible media platform.
I have a point of information on a follow-up, Mr. Speaker, if I may.
Point of information, go ahead.
I have just reviewed numbers from the Guam Daily Post, and according to their February metrics report, their website had 164,491 visitors. That means, without a doubt, they will qualify under this bill.
But again,
For the record.
Thank you. Again, Mr. Speaker, because the bill doesn't specify when or how that criteria must be met, that I'm not satisfied with that answer, actually. And I also want to address the arbitrary elimination of the Guam Public Notice website as an eligible platform for public notices. Because the bill does, in the beginning of it, say that you could post a notice and it goes on the Guam Public Notice website, but later in subsection B2 of Chapter 8, the requirement that any radio or television station or website must be a component of a company that is licensed to do business on Guam to be an eligible media platform. That language clearly conflicts with language earlier in the bill, and that's why I believe that this bill actually excludes the Guam Public Notice website as an eligible platform for public notices. The bill also has several negative impacts on open government laws. Legal notices, probate cases, we are undermining due process. Legal notices, including probate case announcement, foreclosure notices, and other court-mandated public notices, serve a critical function in ensuring that affected parties are informed of legal proceedings. The proposed shift to digital-only public notices raises serious due process concerns, particularly for individuals, no matter their age, who are not internet savvy or lack access to online platforms. Legal policy concerns include failure to notify heirs and creditors in probate cases. Probate law requires publication of notices to notify heirs, creditors, and other interested parties of estate proceedings. Problem if a probate notice is only published online, elderly heirs, rural residents, and those without internet access may never receive the proper notice that they deserve, violating due process rights. A key principle of open government laws is that citizens must be informed of government actions in a way that ensures broad accessibility, not checking a box and saying, okay, yeah, we noticed you. Good luck finding that notice. By the way, the public hearing's done. The amendment reduces public awareness by shifting notices to digital-only platforms that may not be widely used by the general public. This may result in shortened public notice periods due to digital publishing. Traditional newspapers follow fixed schedules, daily or weekly, providing clear deadlines for public notices. Digital platforms allow for instant publication and, more importantly, removal, meaning notices could be published and removed quickly, limiting public engagement opportunities. If public notices are only available online, residents without digital literacy, or even residents who don't know where to find these notices, if this measure passes, they'll be excluded from participation in hearings, meetings, and public discussions. And although members in this body may seek to silence their colleagues, we should never silence the people of Guam. This could also lead to increased litigation due to insufficient notice. If notices fail to reach the public, affected individuals could challenge government actions in court. And here's an example. If a property owner could challenge a foreclosure sale on the basis that the notice was insufficiently published, delaying the process and therefore increasing legal costs. The bill requires independent verification that digital platforms meet the 15% audience reach threshold, but again, it doesn't specify who conducts the audit or how frequently it occurs. The risk of this is that media outlets could manipulate audience data and I believe we're already seeing that, to qualify for public notices, leading to the fraud and lack of accountability. I would prefer that we establish territorial newspapers to include the Pacific Daily News, the Pacific Island Times, and the Guam Daily Post, similar to what the district court does. What we are doing with this bill is creating two standards of public notice, and the standard for the operation and transparency of our people's government should not be the lower standard. More importantly, Mr. Speaker, as I'm running out of time, I would like to at this time make a motion because of these great concerns and the affront to transparency that this bill represents. I at this time would like to motion to send the bill back to committee. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker. Let's do the right thing for the people of Guam.
There is a motion to send the bill back to committee. Okay? There has been an objection to the motion. All those in favor of sending this bill back to committee, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion fails. The author of the bill, would you like to close?
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to close on this bill. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that this forward-thinking proposal literally aims to revamp outdated mandates that were adopted at a time before internet access was commonplace, and embrace technology to better serve our community. Ladies and gentlemen, the trend of media consumption globally and locally is clear. Most people obtain their news through digital platforms. Mr. Speaker, updating our local laws to include these preferred websites and electronic publications will mean, Mr. Speaker, more residents are made aware of important debate and votes contemplated by agencies, commissions, and branches, and can result in a fiscal savings, Mr. Speaker, through a more competitive landscape of potential advertisers. Mr. Speaker, I believe the function of our open government law is not to give any one company a monopoly over board meeting notices, even if it is in the name of convenience for consumers. Instead, Mr. Speaker, I think our driving concern should be twofold. First, to place these notices in front of as many eyes as possible. And second, especially given the trend to cut federal funds led by the Trump administration to save our government.
Point of information,
money.
Mr. Speaker.
But I'd like, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, point of information, the bill does not increase, it reduces the transparency because it doesn't require us to post public notices
Mr.
in
Speaker, I
addition
was closing.
to what's currently required in the law.
This is
That was a point of
closing.
information, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much. This is closing, please.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to close on this measure with a note of caution to this body. This lawmaking institution that believes in a functional democracy, if we truly believe in the American principle of freedom of the press, then we must stop these harmful notions about the government deciding what is real news and what is fake news. The nations that take control over their media, the ones that determine a journalist's credibility and legitimacy, the governments that punish or exclude outlets because they don't like what's being reported, those are the bad guys. A government that controls its media and determines what the truth is, that's a fascist government. It is an authoritarian government, not free republics that control, influence, and limit information through media manipulation. So yes, my colleagues, this may allow a media company you don't personally like to get advertising dollars. But there is a huge difference between a senator saying this website or this newspaper is doing a bad job, and a senator making a law saying only these media outlets are legitimate, or even worse, this specific outlet is being labeled as fake news by law? As Thomas Jefferson said, Mr. Speaker, back in 1786, our liberty depends on the freedom of the press, and that cannot be limited without being lost. So, colleague, if your opposition to this bill is rooted in your personal or professional disdain for a local outlet, please reflect on these words of our founding father. When we limit the freedom of the press, we lose the freedom of the press. And that very, very American principle is what our collective liberty depends on, Mr. Speaker. So yes, I know I was going to have opposition on this because they don't like me personally, but that's okay. I'm hoping that I can get the majority of our colleagues in this room to believe that the intent of this bill is to truly, truly expand the definition of public notice to include electronic newspapers, websites, and other illegible media platforms. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to close, and I move that this bill be moved to the third reading voting file. Si Diyos masi. Oh, I'm sorry, but before I move that, sir, I did have a motion to add co-sponsors. And if I may, I'd like to add Senator Sean Gumatauto, because I have to say their names, because there's several villages that our colleagues are from in the same village. So Senator Sean Gumatauto, Senator Vince Borja, Senator Joe San Agustin, Vice Speaker Ada, and Senator Chris Dueñas, Senator Jesse Lahan, Senator Sabrina Matanani, and that's the motion, sir. Mr. Speaker, sorry.
On the motion to add as co-sponsors, Senator Sean Gumatauto, Senator Vince Borja, Senator Joe San Agustin, Senator V. Anthony Ada, Senator Chris Dueñas, Senator Jesse Lohan, and Senator Sabrina Salas Matanani. Are there any objections? So ordered.
And the motion to move to third reading voting file, sir.
On the motion
Mr.
to
Speaker.
move, on the motion to move Bill 25-38 COR to the third reading, there has been an objection. Okay, all those in favor of moving Bill 25-38 COR as amended by the committee, please indicate by raising your hand. Motion carries. Bill number 34-38 COR. Good Senator from Sinahan, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I make a motion to move Bill 3438 COR, an act to amend Section 2108 of Chapter 2, Title 4, Guam Code Annotated, relative to requiring employees who resign from Government of Guam employment to submit to and pass drug testing to retain reemployment rights. If said resignation was tendered within 30 days of an employer's announcement of a drug testing, and to require employees to submit to drug testing prior to reemployment. On the third reading, and to speak on the motion.
Okay. On the motion, Senator, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this bill is identical to Bill 123-36 that I introduced and was passed by the 36th Guam Legislature but vetoed by the governor. According to the governor's veto message, the veto was a result of a provision that was added on the floor during the second reading that required all employees who opt for reemployment to be drug tested after they were reemployed. Generally, drug testing of government employees without probable cause or random drug testing of security personnel has been held by the courts to be a violation of the Fourth Amendment protection from unwarranted searches. This bill corrects a flaw by requiring the testing prior to reemployment. Bill 34-38 is very simple. It requires any person who resigns from government service subsequent to the announcement of drug testing
or drug screening must complete such screening to be placed on the agency's reemployment list. As you know, Mr. Speaker, in the government of Guam, there are certain positions that are subject to random drug screening. And if any of these employees test positive, he or she is automatically terminated and forfeits reemployment rights. The only exemption is for those who, prior to the drug test, admit to their problem and seek help. This bill will close the loophole that few employees use to avoid drug screening. The assumption that an illicit drug user would rather miss 30 days of work rather than permanent loss of a government employee. Additionally, this bill would expand the cover period from before the scheduled drug test to within 30 days of the scheduled drug test. And two, the employee forfeits automatic reemployment rights whether or not the employee takes the drug test or not. This doesn't mean that the employee is barred from reemployment. It just means that the employee will have to reapply as a new employee and compete with other applicants at the time of the vacancy is announced. As a new hire, the employee is required to take a drug test prior to employment approval. I believe that this bill will close the drug test avoidance loophole. I should also note that Guam's drug testing law applies only to law enforcement personnel, because testing of other active employees without probable cause is unconstitutional. Testing can only be performed for new hires and law enforcement security personnel. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I ask for my colleagues' support on this legislation.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, good Senator from Momoto Tumaiti, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 34-38. I believe that this bill would be necessary, important for maintaining a safe and productive work environment. I support this bill because I understand that it closes the loophole that currently allows employees to evade accountability by resigning just prior to mandatory drug screenings. And from what I see of this bill demands fairness, making certain all employees face equal standards of accountability without exceptions based on timing or circumstance. So that employees who resign to avoid drug test currently retain reemployment rights, potentially undermining fairness to other employees who comply. This legislation corrects prior constitutional concerns raised by the governor by mandating drug tests prior to reemployment rather than post-hiring, aligning with established legal standards, protecting employee privacy and Fourth Amendment rights. Testimony highlighted that the previous version's requirement of post-employment testing was problematic, and this new approach resolves that issue clearly and legally. There is testimony that indicated that this measure promotes responsible stewardship of public employment resources, ensuring that positions are filled by individuals that are accountable. And I support this bill because it supports transparency in government hiring practices, reassuring the public of the GovGuam's commitment to integrity and accountability. I don't know about my colleagues out here, but outside, trust in government is at an all-time low. And I think it's important for us to reform our laws to bring back that faith and that trust in government. But with all my support for this bill, there are some things that I would like to caution and gently bring up for discussion. Like, while I support accountability, we must ensure that this policy is not inadvertently weaponized against employees who legally and responsibly consume cannabis outside of their employment. We must distinguish between responsible private use and genuine workplace impairment or safety risks. I would be the first person to say if anybody shows up to work intoxicated, inebriated in any way, can them immediately. But we also must make sure that we are fair to those employees, that we are not mistaking responsible home use with workplace intoxication. There are other things that have brought questions to my mind. We need to ask ourselves, is the 30-day resignation window genuinely effective in capturing those intending to evade drug test? Or might it unfairly affect employees resigning for unrelated personal reasons? I urge not any strong position either way on that, but it is something I urge this body to carefully consider this time frame to make sure it's neither arbitrary nor overly punitive. I don't know what the formula was to arrive at 30 days. Maybe I could proffer a question to the author. Why 30 days? Why not 60 days? Why not 50 days? Like, how did we arrive at that number? Just out of curiosity.
Would the author yield to the question?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, I do yield to the question. And what it is that usually whenever a drug testing is happening, if we go with the period of 15 days, it just made more logical sense of 30 days prior to any announcement of a drug test, so that, you know, usually that's where the substance perhaps is still in their system or things like of that nature. But however, if the individual, the good gentleman from MTM wants to bring that down to 15, I'm amenable to that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the answers. No, I'm generally okay with where it's set now. I was just trying to understand if there was a method to that 30-day choice, or is it just a policy call? And I'm okay with it at 30 days as a policy call. I think that's fair and reasonable. And just really my only other concern is just how do we ensure that, you know, somebody that happens to be on the verge of resigning isn't unfairly swept up in something like this. I'm not sure what the mechanism or how that problem or that corner case should be addressed, but it is something I would like the body to consider in the interest of fairness for the people that this is going to be overseeing. But I stand in full support of this measure. I think it's necessary and it's a good bill. I just kindly ask that we be respectful of responsible cannabis users. Let's make some accountability and some space for them in this law to be part of this, as well as make sure that we avoid the corner cases where people are wrongfully swept up in this net. And so with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time and I ask my colleagues for their support. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill, with Senator Tumuni, and then
Isidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and before I make some comments on the bill, I'd like to also, as I am the Committee of Jurisdiction for this bill, at this time I make a motion to attach and append my notice under PBS, and this is of course dated 3/6/2025. This invoice prepared for.
appreciate that, Senator. I think, but for clarity purposes, I basically provided a blanket that you were, it was all where it was supposed to be appended to the committee reports, to inclusive of these reports.
Thank,
that it was going to be done.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay?
Speaker. Just wanted to double check on that. So, Mr. Speaker, I certainly
Point of
rise.
information, Mr. Speaker, we don't have a copy, or I didn't get one.
Pardon me? I'm sorry.
We didn't get copies of this on the motion.
The clerks told me that they passed it out. Anybody else not get the?
Is it the same as the previous bill?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Because
Oh,
it
okay
was the
then.
same.
Yeah.
The bills were heard on
Just
the same
must-
date. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no objection.
Okay. Proceed, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I certainly rise in full support of this measure. You know, as a director for several different agencies and former administrations, this was a source of frustration. You know, some folks would let us know when they had reasonable suspicion and the like, and the word would get out. And a lot of times employees, unfortunately, who have succumbed to addiction, really kind of knew how to work the system. The biggest thing, Mr. Speaker, is in the work environment, one of the things that I experience more than anything else is other workers, you know, feeling threatened, knowing that others are showing signs of using and just different things, demonstrations in terms of their behavior. And they've seen employees actually get away with this in the past because they knew that they had their reinstatement rights. And so what they do is they'd find out about announcements or they'd find out about reasonable suspicion. And a lot of times those employees would just come in and resign either for personal reasons or other matters. And then several months down the line, you know, they come back and request their reinstatement, which they're entitled to. So I think this is really important to send the message, you know, that you work for the government of Guam. You know, there's an expectation by the taxpayers that you adhere to a workplace that is drug-free and that you don't use loopholes within your employment to be able to circumvent that. As you know, in the private sector, you know, whatever policies that the private sector has, you know, those decisions are final. And in the private sector, there's not reinstatement rights. So for the sake of all the other employees who, you know, refrain from that activity, who do not do that activity, and who understand their duty and their responsibility to their government service, I think we owe them the dignity of upholding their duties and responsibilities and their commitment to public service and to our government and to our people. And by doing that, we send that message, ensuring that we close any possible loopholes to individuals who know that they're not supposed to be using, particularly in test designated positions, you know, that they're putting at risk their fellow employees, and they're also creating a degree of unfairness that exists of that expectation amongst other employees. So for that reason, I certainly rise in full support of this measure and you know, congratulate the author for his persistence on this. Si Dios masi.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, gentlelady from Barrigada, you're recognized.
Have a day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Have a day, colleagues. I rise today in full support of Bill number 3438 COR, a measure that speaks to the heart of integrity, responsibility, and fairness in our government workforce. Mr. Speaker, this bill is simple in its premise but meaningful in its impact. It requires drug testing for employees seeking reemployment in government. This is about fairness. This is about consistency. And above all, this is about ensuring that the people of Guam have confidence in that their government is operating with integrity. The majority of our public servants work hard every single day to serve the people with honesty and dedication. They follow rules. They show up. They uphold the trust placed in them. But unfortunately, we know that there are loopholes in our current system. Loopholes that allow some individuals to resign just before a drug test and then return to the government, return to the service later without being held to the same standards. That undermines the trust of the public and disrespects those who are doing things the right way. This bill is not punitive, Mr. Speaker. It's preventative. It is a safeguard to ensure that no one can use resignation as a way to dodge accountability. By requiring drug testing prior to reemployment and specifically addressing resignations that occur within 30 days of a test being announced, we are closing a loophole that has existed far too long. We are making sure that every person who enters or re-enters our government workforce is meeting the same standard of conduct. If there are legitimate worries about how this policy will be carried out, we should work with our agencies to address them. We should be open to refining processes and ensuring that employees who resign for valid reasons, whether medical, personal, or family-related, are not unfairly penalized. But those goals are not at odds with this bill. Mr. Speaker, this isn't just a matter of policy. It's a matter of principle. The people of Guam expect a professional and trustworthy government. They expect us, the lawmakers, to put safeguards in place that prevent abuse in the system. And they expect us to lead with courage when we see something that needs to be fixed. Bill number 3438 COR fixes a problem, and it does so in a way that is balanced, fair, and enforceable. In the end, this bill isn't about punishment. It's about standards. It's about saying that public service is a privilege. And with that privilege comes responsibility. It's about ensuring that no one has an unfair advantage, and that everyone seeking to return to the government employment is treated equally and held to the same accountability and expectations. Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleagues to support this bill. Let us move forward with a policy that strengthens our workforce, upholds public trust, and demonstrates our commitment to a government that is accountable to its people. Sidus Masi. Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Senator. Gentlelady from Pago Bay, Manila, you are recognized.
Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to rise in support of this measure, Bill number 34-38, and I want to thank the good Vice Speaker for allowing me to be a part of his co-sponsors of this co-sponsorship. Thank you. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, my support for this measure is simple. Those entrusted with public service should not be able to exploit loopholes that protect their jobs, even though they are using illegal drugs. While the policy to grant classified employees re-employment rights, especially for hard-to-fill positions, it is not right that this privilege can be exploited by workers trying to skip over a drug test. As we all know, Mr. Speaker, post-employment drug tests are either done for cause or randomly to ensure our workplace are free of these harmful substances. But some out there, under our current law, can react to announce drug tests with sudden resignations only to reapply for their same positions days or weeks later, knowing that there wasn't enough time to announce their job interview candidates and hire a replacement. So I do want to say that I applaud the author for closing up this loophole by requiring anyone who resigns within 30 days of an announced drug test to submit and pass a drug test before they can be rehired. So, Mr. Speaker, for me personally, this is a common sense change, and I think we should all stand behind this. Mr. Speaker, and I urge all my colleagues to vote yes on this measure. Si Jules Masi, for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this measure. Sana Masi.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Good senator from Talofofo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of Bill 34-38 COR. As a branch of the government of Guam, we need to do all we can to provide a drug-free, healthy, and safe workplace for the people who work in our government departments and agencies, and to better serve our island community. To promote this goal, employees are required to report to work in appropriate mental and physical condition to perform their jobs in a satisfactory manner. A loophole will be closed for those who attempt to skirt around our system, especially, Mr. Speaker, when they think they may or may not want to take a drug test, random or not. Working in the senior levels of two of the branches of this government, I've seen it firsthand. I've seen it, Mr. Speaker, the look on the directors and the staff's faces when these people leave and then when they return. And then not to mention either the customers or those at the other end that are getting the services that we believe or should be provided to our people. Absolutely dejecting, if I must say, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the Vice Speaker, Senator Tony Atta, for this measure and his effort with Bill 34-38 COR. Together, we all must recognize that the process to hire GovGuam workers takes much time and has a cost. We recognize that individuals under the influence of drugs or alcohol in the workplace pose serious safety and health risks, not only to themselves, but also to all those who surround or come into contact with them. If approved by this body, this measure is another necessary step, Mr. Speaker, a necessary step forward in our broader fight against illegal substances which continue to destroy our families and our island community while adversely impacting the limited resources of our local law enforcement, healthcare, and social services. The costs of not approving Bill 34-38 COR and other common sense measures aimed at protecting our children and families from substance use and abuse that impact us at every level of this government and our capacity to serve and protect all of our people of Guam, Mr. Speaker, are very high. We need to make sure we don't continue that. So thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the chance to briefly share my support for Bill 34-38. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Gentle lady from Tamuning, you are recognized, ma'am.
Buenas, buenas, and half a day, Mr. Speaker. Of course, you know, we all remember during the 36th Guam Legislature that this bill was passed and by the body. There was so much great support for it, and looking forward to its passage and put into law. Unfortunately, the governor vetoed this bill. And her excuse was just, it baffled me, because at the end it says, the government of Guam agency, in her letter of veto, Mr. Speaker, the government of Guam agencies do not possess power that the author of Bill 123-36 assumes they do. But yes, we do. Because it's this body that creates the laws. So yes, we do. Bill 123-36, during the 36 when it was introduced, as written, would not be enforceable because agencies cannot announce random testing for all employees. But if you read the bill, it clearly states at the end, Section B, notwithstanding any other provisions of law or administrative or personal rules or regulations, an employee who resigns within 30 days of an announcement of a government-sponsored drug testing, okay? So 30 days, actually, it's just the numbers, it was talked about earlier, really, you know, maybe we shouldn't even put any days in there to have that another loophole. Maybe we should strike out that and just incorporate that any government-sponsored drug testing within the employee's department that would be subject to employee to drug testing shall submit to and pass said drug testing prior to resignation. So sometimes it could be, you know, 15 days or, you know, maybe 20 days, and I guess it's within 30 days, but let's say it's 40 days or some kind of loophole, you know, and they can find in the law. Oh, no, it was announced, you know, 40 days out, or, you know, it was announced 41 days out. I don't think there should be even any days, anytime there's any kind of drug testing announcement. So I'm thinking maybe I would like to talk to the author just to get rid of that section, to keep it open. It doesn't matter what day or time of day that it's happening. So when an employee tries to divert themselves because maybe they were, you know, under the influence and they didn't have enough time to what they call wash out, they resign. So it can be, if they do resign, they would have to take a test, because if they do plan on coming back for reemployment. That's what this bill basically does. So, you know, and also to enforce it using days. I mean, that sounds like a long, drawn-out civil service case to me. So I'd like to just take a moment to ask the author if eliminating this, and even with legal, eliminating this is just whenever there's a drug testing, that if an employee decides to resign, that in order to come back into the government of Guam after his resignation, that he can do so. So I'd just like to take a moment, because I know we went down this path, but there was never that opportunity to talk about the numbers, and I'm glad that one of the senators did talk to that, and I know he was amenable, the author was amenable to it, but if you can just give me 1 minute, 1 minute.
We're in recess. Back from recess.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I believe it was just 1 minute. Having the opportunity, after speaking with the author of the legislation, I think at this point, because, you know, for the sake of time to writing it down, but it's already been looked at before, the governor knows it's coming again. We're keeping it status quo. Her veto message really does not make any sense with regards to anybody having to take a test before leaving the government of Guam. So I would be surprised to see her try to veto this bill again, you know. But other than that, Mr. Chair, requiring drug testing for any individual who resigns within 30 days of government-sponsored drug testing announcement, you know, demonstrates a commitment to fairness and transparency. You know, it ensures that employees cannot evade accountability. and later return without meeting the same standards expected of their own peers. By requiring these individuals to submit to and pass drug tests prior to resignation or forfeit reemployment rights, we emphasize the importance of maintaining a drug-free and responsible workplace. This policy not only upholds workplace safety and productivity, but also fosters public confidence in the operations of the government and their departments. It aligns with the principles that every employee, regardless of their circumstances, is held to the same level of accountability. So let us prioritize the well-being of our workforce, make that a priority, and the community will serve by supporting this measure. I thank you, and of course, I was the sponsor of the last one. I don't know what happened and got slipped through the cracks, but I ask that the author of the legislation also include me as a co-sponsor in this measure. Once again, thank you.
Thank you, Senator. On the bill, any other senators wishing to be recognized? On the bill. Gentlelady from Zonia, you're recognized.
Jesus Mossy, Mr. Speaker, I stand in support of the bill. It's interesting, this bill was proffered, and I think it's almost identical to the one that was vetoed. So we'll see what happens this time. But I just wanted to question, so the governor recently announced that she's going to do a new policy, a drug testing policy. She mandated that the DOA come up with one within 180 days. So she did that by executive order. She said in her press release that the new policy will continue to expressly prohibit use of cannabis in any government work site. But I wanted to know, so where we say here on page 2, line 8 or 7, 8, those who resign within 30 days of an announcement of government drug testing. There's also, in the DOA's testimony, February 2025, they say that agencies are not permitted to announce random drug testing within a department. Employees subject to random drug testing are those occupying testing designated positions. So I think we're going to miss those guys or girls, women, if we do not, if we only qualify it with an announcement, meaning they're not supposed to be giving announcements, so I'm not sure. Maybe, I know what they mean. Like, they mean we internally are establishing that we are going to do a drug testing, a random drug testing, but they're not supposed to announce that to their employees. I'm not sure what's the fix to that, but I would hate to see the bill not get vetoed again because of something like that. Jesus Mossy, Mr. Speaker.
So there is no question to the author of the bill? Senator? We'll take a 1-minute recess for
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to proffer an amendment. It's very simple. It's on page 2, line 8. Oh,
Go ahead.
and it'll be starting on line 7. Any employee who resigns within 30 days of an announced or random government-sponsored drug testing. So we're just adding the word in, changing from announcement to announced and or random, and deleting the word of any.
So the amendment is to page 2, line 8. Change the word announcement to announced, and then add the words or random, and then delete of any.
Yes.
Okay?
And that's the amendment by Senator Taitigui and myself.
On the amendment, any questions, comments? On the amendment? Good Senator from Tamuning. I was waiting for you. Okay.
So just Mr. Speaker, I was just like really glad that we came to some kind of understanding. Yes. And of course, I think this is going to work because like I said earlier, this is just another issue at civil service to go through. I appreciate that, also Senator Chalahi bringing up the concern, reading from the Department of Administration, the concern I had. I was just reading from the vetoed message that she had, and just foreseeing the problems. And I appreciate that the author of the legislation allowed me to be the sponsor of this amendment. And other than that, I think this is going to be a win-win. It's made the bill stronger, and it's because of collaboration, Mr. Speaker, that this bill is now stronger. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. On the amendment. Okay. Any objections to the amendment? No objections to the amendment, so ordered.
So the other amendment I would like to proffer, Mr. Speaker, is just to add the co-sponsors of Senator Parkinson.
Mr. Vice Speaker, can we hang up? Because there are some other gentlemen here that want to be able to speak on the bill.
Oh, okay, okay.
And I'll give
Thought
you
I
the
was
time
already
to,
closing. Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
I'll give you time at closing, okay? On the bill as amended, anybody wish to speak? Senator, the good Senator from Talavopo, you're recognized.
So just Masia, Mr. Speaker, I'm in support of the bill. I'm a co-sponsor of it. I just wanted to share, it's not exactly similar to what's in the bill, but in the previous term, I was made aware of 2 Department of Corrections officers who tested positive and then were subsequently hired on, one at the port and one at the Guam Memorial Hospital. Yeah, I think they're playing, the GM down there is playing a little fast and loose with who he's hiring, but I guess my question for the author was, does this bill cover the autonomous agencies like the Port Authority of Guam and others?
Would you yield to the question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, yes it does.
See, just Mr. Speaker, and I have nothing further, and again, I support the measure. I remember seeing it as one of my colleagues in the news reported on it back in the 36th FNN, and I supported it then, and I do believe that it closes a loophole that is too often abused in the government of Guam.
Okay. Thank you very much, Senator. Any other senator wishing to speak on the bill as amended? Good Senator from Tamuning, you're recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just stand and echo the sentiments of course, the colleagues that had spoken earlier in support of the bill. I too stand in full support of the bill. Likewise, you know, this great bill, of course, sponsored by the gentleman from Sinahanya. And Mr. Speaker, you know, the bill had received no opposition, verbally or even written. And I know the gentleman from Sinahanya stood earlier to amend his bill to include, I think, probably everybody. So it looks like everyone's going to be co-sponsors, and I look forward to, of course, the unanimous passage of this bill when we go for the vote. So with that, I want to say and congratulate the author, the good gentleman from Sinahanya, and the introduction of the bill, because as was mentioned earlier as well, you know, we have this drug epidemic here in Guam, and this is a step towards regaining back our island and getting back our government. And the unfortunate thing is that drugs, most especially meth, has infiltrated every aspect of our island, whatever the job may be, and family. I don't think any family is immune to such. I don't think any private sector or government entity is immune to such as well. So this is a step forward in being able to try to make and taking our government back, get our island back. And hopefully with future legislation and more stringent drug enforcement tactics, that we will, again, someday real soon, get our drug situation under real control here in our island. So again, I want to stand up in full support and thank the author and colleagues that will be signing on as the co-sponsors, because it looks like it will get unanimous vote come the day that we vote, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill as amended, will the author of the bill will the author of the bill like to close? And don't forget your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I close, I'd like to proffer an amendment to add Senators Parkinson, Gumatautau, Taidagui, Terlahi, and Borja.
Can you repeat them again, please?
Senators Parkinson, Gumatautau, Taidagui, Terlahi, and Borja.
On the amendment to include Senators Parkinson, Gumatautau, Taidagui, Terlahi, and Bora as co-sponsors to the bill. Are there any objections? No objections, so ordered. You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, this policy is not punitive. It encourages employees to take responsibility for their actions. Those who have faced challenges with substance use are given a clear opportunity to seek help and demonstrate their readiness to return to public service by passing a drug test. They show a commitment to personal growth and professionalism. As you know, that drug use in the workplace can lead to safety concerns, impaired performance, and disruptions to team dynamics. Requiring employees to pass drug tests prior to reemployment ensures a safe, productive, and professional work environment. It prevents the potential risks that could arise from rehiring individuals who may have unresolved substance abuse issues. Requiring drug testing for those who resign under these circumstances acts as a deterrent against evasion of workplace rules. It communicates a clear message. Adherence to workplace standards is non-negotiable. This helps foster a culture of accountability and compliance across government departments. This policy, Mr. Speaker, is a step forward towards safeguarding the integrity, the professionalism, and trustworthiness of the government of Guam workforce. And it ensures that all employees are held to the same standards. It deters the evasion of actions and promotes a safe and accountable work environment. I ask my colleagues for their support and to please vote yes on this amendment, on this measure. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, would you like to?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make a motion to move Bill 3438 down into the voting volume,
As amended?
as amended on the floor.
On the motion to move Bill number 34-38 COR as amended on the floor to the third reading, are there any objections? No objections, so ordered. The gentleman from Sinohanya.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to move Bill 3538 COR, an act to add a new Article 2, Chapter 32, Title 10, Guam Code annotated relative to prohibiting the import of skincare products that pose a danger to Guam's coral reefs and marine life to the third reading, and I'd like to speak on the motion, please.
Is this the one as amended by the Committee on Land?
Yes, as amended, sir.
As amended by the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure. Am I correct?
Yes. That's correct, as amended by the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agriculture, Parks, and Infrastructure.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill follows the lead of other United States jurisdictions, such as Hawaii, Key West, Florida, and U.S. Virgin Islands, that have banned the chemicals oxybenzone, octinoxate, and octocrylene. These chemicals have been identified by the U.S. EPA and United States Park Service to be toxic to human and marine life in high levels. As you know, many of these chemicals accumulate in certain marine species and are a concern moving up the food chain to larger fish and eventually to humans. This bill does not force any business to remove their products from their shelves. It just bans future imports of the products containing these chemicals. It also allows the Guam EPA and the Department of Public Health and Social Services to ban other products that have been determined to be hazardous to marine life and humans. Such future bans can only happen after adequate public hearings and advance notice. There are many effective skincare products that provide adequate UV protection without being harmful to marine life. Guam's primary tourism attraction is its beaches. And our beaches depend on healthy coral reefs to survive, along with invasive species such as the crown of thorn starfish and silt inundation from soil erosion and runoff. Guam's coral reefs face many challenges for survival. Bill number 3538 does not ban the use of sunscreen. It simply requires retailers to offer products that are safe for the environment. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, there are many products out there on the shelf that are environmentally friendly and also friendly for human consumption, for our use on our skin. So I ask my colleagues for support on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Speaker Adam. Gentlewoman from Chalampago, Senator Barnes, you're recognized. Munya Barnes, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this Bill 35-38. And as a co-sponsor of this measure, I would like to take the time again to thank the author, our Vice Speaker, Senator Toniata, for bringing such a progressive and workable measure for our consideration. Mr. Speaker, those of us who call the Blue Continent home share important challenges. Sea levels are rising and climate change is contributing to more severe weather events, coral bleaching, and coastal erosion. Without exaggerating or using poetic license, this is an existential crisis for island communities. After all, Mr. Speaker, I just want to say if your island goes underwater, what country are you a citizen of? Where is your homeland? No person should have to navigate these choppy waters of identity. No one should have to live a life where their native country is wiped off the face of the earth. No family should have to uproot their lives under the weight of forced immigration caused by climate change. Mr. Speaker, in this day and age, it is easy to be swept up in heightened geopolitical tensions, to prioritize what is going on diplomatically or militarily in our Indo-Pacific region. But the uncertain future we are working to make better must be shaped by other considerations. And for example, Mr. Speaker, the health of our oceans and our sea life and how that affects the health and prosperity of our people. Because, Mr. Speaker, we in the blue continent have always and will always rely heavily on our ocean resources for economic development, food security, and cultural identity. Mr. Speaker, security of island countries and territories is not just about the traditional security of defense, but also through issues that directly affect the people of the Pacific, such as climate change, ocean acidification, sea level rise. You know, Mr. Speaker, there were powerful and words poignant. Asina, a member of the commission, Archer Moral Language Commission, shared with me, and it really has stayed in my heart, and I'd like to do the same here with you folks. This Sina told us, Taza tanu sin tautau, Taza tautau sin tanu. Indeed, ladies and gentlemen, without land, there is no people. And without people, there is no land. So while Bill 35-38 has a built-in economic protection, by preserving our reefs, which provide an attraction for tourists and protection from typhoons, floods, and tsunamis, the heart of Bill 35-38 is much deeper than looking out for our government's bottom line. Remember this, my colleagues, we are lucky enough to inherit this island, should always consider this. Without the fish just off our shores, without the perfect aquifer under our feet, without the trade winds that fill ourselves, none of us would be here today. Mr. Speaker, this blessed island makes us who we are, and our actions determine how blessed it is in the future. So, because Bill 35-38 is a step toward protecting a priceless resource, I will be voting yes, definitely, on this measure. And I humbly ask that all members of our 38th Guam Legislature do the same. And Mr. Speaker, I just want to also add before I truly close, was being a part of the Association of Pacific Island Legislators and seeing what our island brothers and sisters go through with the challenges that they have and the preservation, that they really work hard to preserve and protect their island. I want to say it is very scary with some of our island brothers and sisters at that threat of literally going under because of sea level rising and other that I noted earlier, and this is one way of doing that and ensuring that even here on Guam, that we truly want to do the same with our brothers and sisters in the blue continent, is to protect and preserve what we've been blessed with. So thank you again for giving me the opportunity to speak and rise in support of this measure. I want to thank the good Vice Speaker Tony for giving me that opportunity to be a co-sponsor of this and literally sharing the value of what we've been truly been blessed with. So, sana masi.
Thank you very much, Senator. On the bill, are there any senators who want to be recognized on the bill? Senator from Barragata, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, colleagues, and the people of Guam. First, I'd like to thank the author of the bill, Vice Speaker Toniata, for inviting me to co-sponsor. I rise today in strong support of Bill number 3538 COR, legislation that takes a bold action, necessary step to safeguard our coral reefs and marine life from the long-term damage caused by harmful chemicals found in common skincare products. Let me begin by saying that this bill is not about restricting commerce or telling people what sunscreen they can use. It's about preserving our natural heritage, ensuring that the health of our oceans and protecting the resources that sustain our island's way of life. As an island territory, Guam's identity, economy, and environment are inextricably linked to the ocean. Our reefs are not just beautiful ecosystems, they are barriers that protect our coastlines, nurseries for marine life, and a draw for ecotourism. Our ecotourism that supports thousands of jobs. They feed our families, support our communities, support our local economy, and connect us to the generations of Chamorro culture and tradition. But Mr. Speaker, those reefs are under threat, not just from climate change or rising sea temperatures, though those are serious issues, but also from something as seemingly harmless as sunscreen. Studies from the U.S. National Park Services and countless marine scientists have shown that chemicals like oxybenzone, octinoxate, and octocrylene can bleach coral, deform marine life, and disrupt the entire food chain. These chemicals accumulate in our waters from swimmers, runoff, and wastewaters, and the damage adds up year after year. This bill, Mr. Speaker, prohibits the importation of skincare products containing those harmful ingredients or substances. And it empowers our agencies to assess and restrict other chemicals found to pose a threat to our marine ecosystems. It is a forward-looking, flexible approach that mirrors policies that are already in place and that are already adopted in places like Palau, Hawaii, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. These are jurisdictions that, like Guam, depend heavily on both the health of their ecosystems and the sustainability of their tourism industries. Let's be honest, consumers are more informed today than ever before. More and more travelers, especially those visiting tropical destinations, are asking for reef-safe options. Guam has a chance not only to protect its environment, but to lead by example. Lead by example in the Pacific as a model of sustainable living. Mr. Speaker, this is not a radical bill. It's a reasonable, science-based policy that balances environmental protection with economic transition. It doesn't outright ban sunscreen, it bans specific chemicals. specific chemicals known to be toxic to coral and marine life. And it empowers our local agencies, people with knowledge of our island's unique environment, to make decisions based on evolving science. Some may say this bill is ambitious. I say it's long overdue. If we continue to wait, if we continue to ignore the damage, the cost will not just be environmental. It will also be economic. It's not just environmental, it's not just economic, but also cultural and personal. We risk losing the very reefs that protect our shores, that protect our families, and make Guam the beautiful, vibrant island we all love. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge this body to pass Bill number 3538 COR. Let's act not just in the name of policy, but in the name of responsibility. In the name of responsibility, preservation, and progress. Let us show our people and the world that Guam is committed to protecting its natural resources and treasures, not just for today, but for all the generations to come. Thank you, Sejus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, any other senator willing to speak? On the bill. Gentlelady from Georgia, you are recognized.
Sejus Masi, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the bill. You know, the bill points out that these 3 chemicals that we are banning or would be banned by this bill impact corals, fish, mammals, the ecosystem. They impair the growth of green algae, the essential part of the food web. But I want to put on the record that this is sunscreen. And while this is an issue worldwide, we have so many other issues that are affecting our marine ecosystems. And I hope that we are going to take action on these as well. As one of my colleagues pointed out earlier, she pointed out climate change. Yes. Ocean acidification. Yes. Sea level rise. Absolutely. But we also on Guam have mining above our aquifer. We have a lack of sewer above our aquifer. And we have untreated runoff going directly from Tumon Bay into our oceans. We have live fire training. We have detonations on the shores, live fire in the water. All of these are impacting our marine life, and our fishermen are telling us that it is more and more difficult, less and less safe for them to try to do just sustainable fishing, just the fishing for their families. I do have an amendment to proffer, but before I do, I'd just like to ask 1 or 2 questions of the sponsor. And in the intent of the bill, we point out that there are other chemicals that are being banned in other places. So Guam will be banning 3 according to this bill, but which is consistent with some jurisdictions. But it says that in Belao, they have banned a lot more. And I guess I just want to ask the sponsor if he would yield, are we not concerned with these other chemicals that Palau is banning? Do we not have those in such amounts here?
Would the sponsor yield to the question?
Yes, you know, Palau actually has one of the most strictest chemical ban around, and that's why they really protect their reefs, their corals, and their oceans. This is a good start for us to take these products out of our island, and also we can continue to work in ensuring that other products that are, and chemicals that are dangerous to not just marine life, but also to our people, that we also look at getting those included as well. But we can always continue to keep our islands safe and keep our people safe by looking at what continues to be an issue and how we can address those issues and move forward with them.
Mrs. Mossy, for yielding and for that answer. And the intent also states that U.S. National Park Service, they have made a finding that pollution, that these things are causing this concern. But I want to know, have they detected this here on Guam, or are these studies done nationwide or in other places? If the author would yield.
Yes, I do. I believe these are nationwide studies, and that's why areas like Key West, Florida, and Hawaii have started taking action on these products as they become readily, the results have become readily known, and that's how we take a proactive position in this as well.
Mrs. Mossy. And then finally, the bill includes the 3 agencies, Guam EPA, Department of Public Health's Division of Environmental Health, and the Department of Agriculture. And rightly so, but it says that these 3 agencies on page 4, line 16, 18, that they will jointly come up with rules. It says either separately or jointly develop rules and regs. And I guess I want to know, when they develop the rules and regs, who is responsible for going out and stopping the products that are banned? Is that going to be customs, or is it going to be these agencies? And what other role will these agencies have?
Would you yield to the question?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I believe once the agencies, as a standalone or as a group, that they come together, the Guam Department of Agriculture, because of the coral marine protection, and then the EPA and Guam Public Health, hopefully that when they come up with their rules and regulations, that as people come in through the island, customs will be able to enforce these prohibited items from coming into the island as well. And it's going to be a joint effort to get these products, to prohibit them from coming in.
All right, Mrs. Mossy. So, sorry, I do have 2 more technical questions. One is the United States National Park Service detected oxybenzone, octinoxate, and avobenzone, but we are prohibiting oxybenzone, octinoxate, and octocrylene, not the avobenzone. I'm just wondering if the sponsor would yield to that. I don't know if those are the same or not.
Yeah, so those are the 3 most common products in skincare, in the skincare products, and that's why we went with those products, those ingredients.
All right, so just to note, then we are not including the avobenzone that the United States Park Service also notes. Maybe they're not in sunscreens, but, and then on page 5, line 11, the act is effective upon enactment, except that 631002C and E are effective 180 days from the date of enactment. So I'm trying to find out which ones are being delayed, but I can't find it.
This is so that they'll be able to use whatever products are still on their shelves and be able to not have any left in inventory prior to the 180-day enactment.
All right, but we're changing the effective date for 631002C and E. I don't see an E. I don't see the letter E, the subsection E here in the bill. And so I'm wondering, are we intending to delay that these are put on the list of bans? Are we intending to delay subsection D, that the fines?
It's the fines. the ban, the fines, so that's why I was mentioning that it'll be 180 days so that they can utilize their products that are currently on their shelves or currently in their inventory.
All right, I guess I'm going to ask then, Mr. Speaker, that legal has to clarify that because it's saying CNE and there is no E. And then I'd like to move my amendment.
Okay, why don't we deal with that one first? Let's take a 1-minute recess, okay? Back from recess.
Jesus Mossy, Mr. Speaker. Yeah, I'd like to move my amendment, lines 8 through 13 on page 4. So this is to subsection D of the bill, which puts a fine for anyone who imports these banned chemicals or these banned sunscreen chemicals. And my amendment would just be to outline where those fines are going to go. And my amendment says the Guam Environmental Trust Fund, but if I could just make an amendment to that amendment, I'd like to change that to the, never mind, I'll just leave it, Guam Environmental Trust Fund. This is gonna go to Guam EPA, and this is why I was asking earlier about the 3 different agencies that are involved here. But this is a fund that they use for hazardous mitigation, yeah, they're protecting us from hazardous chemicals as well. So I guess that's fitting. But yes, so no amendment to this amendment. I would just proffer this amendment, Mr. Speaker.
Does everybody have a copy of the amendment by the good senator? All right, the amendment basically is to lines 8 through 13 on page 4, and it's to add the sentence, the civil fine shall be deposited into the Guam Environmental Trust Fund and used in accordance with 10 GCA Chapter 45, Article 2. Okay. Any discussion on the amendment? Good Senator from Talafofo, you're recognized.
Sujus Masia, Mr. Speaker. I rise in support of the amendment because it puts the teeth into the protection of the environment, and I ask my colleagues to do the same. I mean, these penalties will not only send a message to those who would seek to damage our coral reefs, but it also would go a long way towards funding some, some things that are going to be good for the environment by making sure that the civil fines are deposited into the Guam Environmental Trust Fund. So thank the author for this amendment, and I rise in support of it. Sijos Masi.
Thank you, Senator. Any other senator wishing to speak on the amendment? On the amendment proffered by the good senator. Senator, ma'am, would you like to close on your amendment? Okay. Are there any objections to the amendment? Any objections to the amendment? No objections, so ordered.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, and thank you again to those who supported that amendment. And I support the bill, but again, this is one problem that we are having affecting our reefs of fishing, our livelihood here on Guam, and I hope that my colleagues will join me as well in prohibiting the other harms to Guam's coral reefs. Jesus Masi.
Thank you very much. Okay. On the bill as amended, any other senators willing to speak? No? The senator from Talofofo, you are recognized.
Sidus Wasi, Mr. Speaker. And again, buenas noches to the people of Guam. I certainly rise in support of the bills. I'm a co-sponsor on the measure, and I think it's also long overdue. So I definitely support it, but I did also want to say that as a body, while we support this measure that again will protect our coral reefs and our environment, I just want to also say that, you know, today we support this measure and then tomorrow we vote on a bill that, you know, Guam EPA, Guam Waterworks Authority is opposing, or any bill, just generally speaking, you know, let's be consistent. And so while these products cause harm to our coral reefs, there are much more harmful practices that the previous legislature and even this one are willing to entertain through other pieces of legislation. And that, I'm not trying to talk about other bills, Mr. Speaker, but I just want to say generally, if we're going to support protecting the environment in this manner, then we should be consistent across the board and really heed the words and the warnings of these regulatory agencies that are, you know, for the most part, very apolitical. So definitely support this, but also would encourage my colleagues to, again, be consistent because, mark my words, we all know on this agenda there are some bills that the regulatory agencies are really sounding the alarm on. And so I just don't want us to, out of one side of our mouth today, talk about, oh, we love the environment, and then tomorrow vote to pass a bill that's going to poison the aquifer. So that's all, just in the name of consistency for the people of Guam. Sidus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Very sly remarks, Senator, but okay, I'll admit it. Okay. On the bill, as amended, would the author like to close on the bill?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I close, I'd like to proffer two amendments. And the first one would be on page 5, line 11, where it says the act is effective upon enactment except that 631002C, and so that should be D, not E. Letter D.
On the amendment? Okay.
And the second amendment is just to add.
Wait, hang on, let me
I'm
just
sorry.
dispose of that amendment. Any objections to the amendment? No objections, so. No, he's just, go, can you repeat where it's at?
It's on page 5, line 11, and it's just to strike out E and add D, so it'll be section C and D, because there is no section E.
Point of inquiry, Mr. Speaker, is the amendment in writing?
No.
Just for, again, I just talked about consistency, and we didn't allow another colleague to entertain an amendment that wasn't in writing, so I'm just asking.
And I have a lot of other colleagues to do the same likewise. I've been consistent, I was consistent, okay? So this is page 5, line 11, change E to D.
Right.
Okay, E to D. Any objection? No objection, so ordered. What's your second amendment?
The second amendment is just to add Senator Chalahi as a co-sponsor.
Okay, on the amendment to add Senator Therese Talai as a co-sponsor, without it in writing, no objection? So ordered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And to my colleagues as well, thank you for the opportunity on this, bringing this measure to the floor and also to speak on the measure. You know, the beauty of modern science is that we have alternatives, and many environmental friendly sunscreens are available, and they're made with non-toxic, biodegradable ingredients that are equally effective in protecting our skin from harmful UV rays. And we'd like to encourage the use of these products, which supports innovation while reducing environmental harm. You know, we got to keep on transitioning to eco-friendly skincare products that is both feasible and most especially responsible. You know, we have our obligation to make choices that safeguard the environment for future generations. Protecting the marine ecosystems is not just the saving the coral or the fish. It's about preserving the balance of nature that sustains human life. The banning of harmful sun care products sends a powerful message that we prioritize environment, health, along personal care. You know, I would not have known about this issue had it not been for, you know, it's so appropriate that the window coverings are open and, you know, we're looking across the street at the Basilica. And then I'd like to thank Monsignor James Beneventi for bringing this to my attention. And it just goes to show that God is well represented in the protection of our coral reefs and other marine life and human life as well. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I'd like to motion that 38 COR as amended by the Committee on Land, Environment, Housing, Agricultural, Parks, and Infrastructure, and further amended on the floor, move to the third reading.
On the motion, are there any objections? If no objections, so ordered. Bill 46-38 COR. Good gentleman from Talofofo, you are recognized.
Sujus Wasi, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to motion to place bill number 46-38 COR and act to add a new subsection 85A103.1 to Chapter 85A Title 5 Guam Code annotated relative to allowing the Guam Council of Arts and Humanities agency, CAHA, to grant 8 Master's Awards for award years 2018 and 2022 when the agency was unable to make the 4 awards allotted for each of said years. I'd like to place in the third reading file and I'd like to discuss.
You can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The bill authorizes additional CAHA Masters Awards. The Guam Masters Award is awarded to accomplished practitioners of Guam's folk and traditional arts who have contributed to the preservation, advancement, and the appreciation of their arts. The awards are presented at intervals of every 4 years, and there is a limit of 4 awards each award year in April of those years. The bill addresses the 2 award years for which no awards were made. We haven't been able to get a good answer as to why no one was selected in calendar year 2018. But in 2022, as you might recall, there was a little thing called the worldwide pandemic, then that prevented the selections of the masters. I want to thank the committee chair, the good gentlelady who is also from Barrigada. I think we got a few colleagues from Barrigada here. So thank you very much for not just hearing the bill in an expedited manner, but also moving quickly to get it placed onto the agenda. If I may, I'd like to just discuss a little bit more about the Guam Masters Award, which is also known as the Guam National Treasure Award. Now, these awards were created through Public Law 30-139, and they were established to recognize master practitioners of Guam's heritage arts. To honor and to preserve Guam's indigenous cultural heritage, the Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities awards the Guam Masters Award once every 4 years, mostly, to master traditional artists. The award gives due recognition to these master practitioners for their artistry, craftsmanship, and their continuing efforts to preserve Guam's rich history and cultural traditions through the practice and perpetuation of their arts. The award acknowledges artists whose contributions, primarily through teaching, advocacy, organizing, and preserving important artistic practices, have greatly benefited their artistic tradition and whose efforts have significantly increased opportunities for public visibility of traditional practices and heritage arts. The nomination packets are available on the CAHA website, and I just kind of wanted to go through the selection criteria for recipients of the Guam Masters Award, also known as the Guam National Treasure. Exemplary and active practice of a heritage art form, apprenticeship, consummate skill and longevity in the promotion and perpetuation of a heritage art form, contributions to the heritage art form in areas of appreciation, knowledge, teaching, advocacy, and advancement, evidence of high artistic quality of work and mastery of traditional art form via support materials, continuing artistic accomplishment, participation in one's form via practicing, or more importantly, as we see with many of the living masters and the ones who have gone before, teaching. Artistic excellence, benefit to artistic tradition through contributions such as teaching, advocacy, organizing, and preserving important repertoires. Contributions to living cultural heritage, active engagement in preserving the heritage arts, and increases in opportunities for public visibility of traditional arts and artists through the nominees' efforts. And if I may, because they mentioned heritage arts, CAHA defines heritage arts as those aspects of learned behavior, culture, that are transferred through word of mouth and or by following an example set within Chamorro cultural practices. And I just also wanted to read a little bit about just a few of the masters that have won awards. And I want to speak now about Auntie Jill Kitsutsu Beneventi, who is a living master of Chamorro body ornamentation. And this is taken from Guampedia. A lot of the stories of these masters awardees are on the internet, and they make for some really inspiring reading. As a traditional Chamorro jewelry artist, Auntie Jill Beneventi gradually established herself in this, at the time, male-dominated art in the 1990s. Initially, she had a difficult time being accepted by her fellow male carvers. Therefore, she began experimenting and developed her own processes and style as an artist. And eventually, the men could not ignore her skills as a craftswoman, nor her beautiful designs. And let me tell you, if you are lucky enough to wear one of Auntie Jill's designs, or even to see them, they are truly, like many of our artists, in a class of their own. Beneventi owns and operates a cultural shop, Guinahan Chamorro, what Chamorros have, located at Sagan Couture and Chamorro Ipao Point. But those of us who are a little up in the years, not quite Manomku, might remember her shop was actually located in Mangilao, right? Kind of across Winchell's and Domino's Pizza. Beneventi is fondly referred to as Mama Jill by younger artists and friends. She provides many artists with a place to work, gives advice on design, instruction on technique and tool use, consultation on finishing, and even provides a recycled shipping container for housing art pieces. And I think that's key because, again, if you look at the selection criteria, it's not enough to just be an artist or to practice art or to be well-versed in a heritage art. One of the most important criteria is what are you doing to perpetuate this art? How are you apprenticing? How are you teaching other people on our island how to do this art? So that point being that these traditions live on through the apprentices. For her artist friends, there are hours of conversation, lots of laughter, emotional support, and conscientious of her role in passing on knowledge of her craft. Beneventi conducted an apprenticeship program, but specifically in 2008 with 5 young artists through CAHA again. In October of 2014, she was awarded the prestigious title of Master Carver Body Ornamentation from CAHA, and she joins an elite group of local artists recognized as masters, and that elite group numbers some 59 masters awardees. One of the other masters who I was very lucky to know when he was alive was defunto Master Carver Robert Taitano of Jigo. And Mr. Taitano, I just want to again read some of this from the internet here. He was routinely asked to carve trophies for various island competitions or award recognitions, and after years of creating trophies for others, he eventually received one himself in 1997, acquiring a Magalahi Art Award in Folk Arts from the government of Guam in recognition of his exemplary services and contributions to the people of Guam. Among Taitano's most exceptional wooden pieces were 13, and we're going back down memory lane, Hagasa, if you remember, 13 high-backed EFIT chairs. Remember, that was Sina Robert's specialty, was the EFIT wood carving, used to seat President Clinton. And I spoke with Uncle Robert about this, and he was very, very proud that the doggone of a sitting president sat in one of his EFIT chairs. And these chairs seated not only President Clinton, but other dignitaries during a historic visit to Guam in 1998. And the thing about this was, He was only given just a couple weeks' notice to carve these chairs. And eventually, after President Clinton gave his speech on the lawn of Adelup, Secret Service agents visited Uncle Robert's house in Jigo, and they packed 2 of the chairs, which were President Clinton brought back to the White House, and they're now housed in a museum in Hawaii. And Taitano also carved the presidential seal as a gift for the commander-in-chief. Taitano believed the best way to preserve the skill of carving is to teach it to anyone of any age, anybody who wants to learn. He was a popular presenter at island schools. He held workshops for children, including those homeschooled. In 2010, he worked with the youth through a program at the Guam Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. And again, he was awarded his Master's Award in April of 2011. Lastly, I did want to touch very, very briefly on Clotilde Castro Gold, who was recognized as a master Chamorro storyteller. Most notably, her work with OPIR led to a demonstration that prompted the Pacific Daily News to formulate a liberal language policy and the development of 2 Chamorro language features for the newspaper, which would become part of her legacy, Finot Chamorro and Juan Malimanga, if you guys remember. At the time, there were public protests which were previously largely unheard of in our Chamorro history. And Gold, who had organized this protest, was not expecting a large turnout for the small group protesting the PDN's English-only advertisement policy. In fact, to her surprise, more than 800 people turned up for this demonstration, causing the PDN to rescind its English-only policy and to be more sensitive to issues of language and culture. A joint effort between PDN and the Chamorro Studies Division of DOE, of which Gold was the director, resulted in Finot Chamorro, a short daily language lesson, and Juan Malamanga, a Chamorro language comic strip, to be published. Initially, Gold had been asked by PDN to translate the popular comic strip Peanuts into Chamorro. She had tried to do so, but she soon realized that the humor of Peanuts was lost in translation and wasn't even funny for the Chamorro readers. However, not wanting to lose the opportunity, she proposed to produce another comic strip with Chamorro characters speaking and joking in Chamorro and written in a way that reflected local humor. Drawing from her imagination and childhood memories of family and friends, she created the characters for the strip and the storylines for the different misadventures. And with the help of an illustrator, Juan Malamanga was brought to life in May 1981. He was based on a Chamorro folktale character named Juan Mala, who lived during the Spanish era, and he always managed to outwit Spanish administrators with his simple manners and perceived slow wit. Like Juan Malamanga had the same joking manner that drove them crazy. But the strip was more than a window into Chamorro humor. It was a learning tool, and Gould often used it to voice out on current events on Guam in a funny way. And it was witnessing that it inspired me to kind of do the same thing as Malfunction. So I wanted to kind of tie that together, that a lot of these masters of the arts not only did the arts, but they also took important stances at the time that completely reshaped the way we view everything that has to do with Chamorro language culture today. And lastly, I did want to give you a status because we weren't able to introduce this bill and get it passed in the previous term, but CAHA in the October 9, 2024 board meeting gave an update as the chair, Monica Guzman, asked about the status of the Master Recognition Program, and the director responded that the letters to judges were sent out already, as there were some nominations that were made. And judging took place in November, and the recommendations will be brought before the board for the review and approval. And subsequently, in the November 19th meeting, the director announced that the judging of the nominations for the Guam Masters Award took place at CAHA on November 14th. Of the 13 nomination packets submitted and vetted, and if you could just remember the criteria that I laid out, only 5 were eligible based on that criteria. 6 judges evaluated the 5 nomination packets presented, 2 for Master Tetsa, that was, she was using the gold plan for that. 1 weaver, 1 carver, and 1 Zoamti, traditional healer. These numbers are verified by the director. The director stated the tabulation sheet. well, everything basically worked out. Member Master Rabon, however, Frank Rabon, raised, who's a master of Chamorro dance, by the way, raised concerns about the legality of the awards process because we have yet to amend the law, and the amendment to this law is actually what's needed so that they can issue these awards to the masters. So in the January 16th meeting, they had a resolution that would accept these masters. That resolution was tabled until we passed the bill. And so although they have already vetted and received nominations, and of the 13, only 5 were selected, this bill allows for the selection of no more than 8 Masters of the Arts awardees. So if you're on the internet or call my office, I can print the nomination packet for you if you know anybody who meets that criteria. Sadly, posthumous awards are not allowed for this category, which kind of breaks my heart, because in going around and talking about this master's program, there are many families who feel like their deceased relatives. I was talking to one family, and their grandfather was master pescador, a master fisherman who was forced to catch fish for the Japanese troops, and sadly was never recognized for that effort. And so I just wanted to bring that up, and to also humbly ask for my colleagues' support of this measure, which again, as soon as we pass it, I know that these award nominees will be hopefully issued the awards, and we can then open the process to nominate and hopefully accept more Masters of the Arts. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak on the bill, Mr. Speaker, and I humbly again ask my colleagues' support of it. Sijos Masi.
Thank you very much, Senator. Gentlelady from Manila Pago Bay, you're up.
Jesus Masi, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to rise in support of this measure, 46-38, to allow the 8 Master Awards to be issued by CAA in recognition of the 4 years it was not able to issue them. And I truly support the efforts. I appreciate the author of the legislation sharing the names of those that were given in the past, and the update of what CAA has based on the resolution in the January meeting. I did want to note that during the public hearing, the bill would recognize the aging practitioners and address the concerns of the CAA's board regarding the legality of presenting the Master's Awards for the 2018 and 22 without this body's legislative approval to do that. But it was also noted that there was a provision in there about awarding this kind of distinction to Manamku. And I know that the vice chair of CAA, if I understand it correctly, Mr. Max Ronquillo had brought that matter up. So as I support the measure, I literally appreciate this opportunity to be able to recognize our masters. I did want to ask the good author about the public hearing note about the distinction to Manamko, meaning, those that are aging, and what the age is, because for me, masters, like Manamko 55 and above. So is that a part of the package? Because I think it's important, as this is, our masters, those that recognize for the expertise that they've done and contributed. Where does that lead us to that based on the public hearing that was noted by the vice chair?
Do you yield to the question?
I sure do, Mr. Speaker, and Sijos Masi, to the good senator from Pago Bay, Manila, for the question. There is no age criteria for the awarding of the masters. As there are several master awardees, I wouldn't call them Manamko to include my Chalu Vince Regis, who was awarded a title of Master of Chamorro Dance in December 2014, Tautau Malesu, hardly Manamko. I think with some of these younger masters, again, like Master Weaver Philip Sablon, Master of Chamorro Dance Eileen Meno, these are living masters who are still very fortunate that they're among us. But Many of them were apprentices of master awardees who taught them, right? And so there is no age criteria for it, but it is like, and I said this in the public hearing too, there is a little bit of, you know, kind of like this, right? Where you have the older artists and cultural practitioners trying to make way for some of the younger ones, but you know how some of our signers are, right? They're little like that. So I encourage a selection of a master's. But again, in just short answer to the question, there's no criteria on you have to be a manamko or not.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And as I said, I just, as we were looking at the public hearing and sharing some of those concerns, I just wanted to make sure that to them, masters may be, to this definition, masters may be a little bit different for this kind of program, maybe the mastery skills of what has been provided in the past. So I'm not going to proffer any amendment. I know that it was brought up. I know that there may be some, you know, what do you consider masters? And in general, I know that we believe a master's that 55 and older. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak and at least raise this concern as it was raised in the public hearing, but know that this is a very good legislation, and maybe hopefully that the good author of the legislation will allow me to be a part of it. So, Sizus Masi, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to raise and support.
You're very welcome, thank you. Gentlelady from Tamuning, you are recognized.
You know, I don't know how much more I can add to the comments made by our good author of the legislation from Ipan Talafofo. He said it all. The story was awesome. I even forgot about Juan Malamunga. You know, I mean, grew up in that era. So it was a great learning experience. I was watching some of my colleagues listening to him speak on it and smiling and reminiscing about those times. But, you know, this bill is not just about granting overdue recognition, Mr. Speaker. It's about upholding integrity of the master's program itself, the Master Words program. But most especially, this legislation sends an important message about the role the government plays in supporting the arts. By rectifying these missed awards, we not only honor the past recipients, but we also encourage future participation in CAHA programs. So I think this bill is, like you said, last term, I know I was working with the good author of this and mentioning about the wards, how we needed this legislation and tried to get it through, but I'm so glad that he did not drop the ball and continued on and make sure that this important legislation gets through. And again, it's about us supporting the arts. And Viva Mes Chamorro. Oh, come on, let's do it again. Viva Mes Chamorro. That's right. Sizus Masi, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, ma'am. On the bill, Gentlelady from Barragata, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in full support of Bill number 4638 COR, a measure that is both simple in language but profound in impact. This bill authorizes the Guam Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency, or CAHA, to retroactively grant up to 8 Guam Masters Awards for the award years 2018 and 2022, 2 years in which, through no fault of the recipients, these honors were not bestowed. Now, I know on the surface, this may seem like a procedural fix, a matter of housekeeping. But let me be clear, this legislation goes far beyond administrative corrections. This is about dignity. This is about respect. And this is about restoring trust. Mr. Speaker, the Guam Masters Award is one of the highest honors we give in this government to individuals who have dedicated their lives to the preservation, perpetuation, and promotion of Guam's traditional and folk arts. These are the artists who don't just create, they carry on the stories, the customs, the traditions, and the spirit of our ancestors. They are the backbone of our cultural identity. The weavers, the carvers, the chant leaders, the traditional dancers, the singers of Cantan Chamorita, the practitioners of arts passed down not through textbooks, but through time. Through time, memory, and experience. When we fail to recognize them, especially when that recognition is not just symbolic, but hard-earned, we risk sending the wrong message. We risk saying that cultural labor can wait, that tradition is secondary. And Mr. Speaker, that is not a message I believe that this body ever intended to send. This bill is not just asking for change in policy moving forward. It's not proposing an overhaul of the award process. It's asking us to make things right, to allow CAHA the ability to correct the missed opportunity of honoring the cultural members in 2018 and again in 2022. Those missed years matter, Mr. Speaker. We lost time. We lost momentum. And we may have lost trust. Some of those who would have been honored may be in their later years. Some may no longer be with us. The award was not given, but the contributions were still made. The lives of service, teaching, performing, and preserving, those didn't pause, those didn't get delayed. So the question is, will we catch up to the contributions our people have already made? This bill says yes. It says we won't let administrative breakdown prevent us from honoring those who never stopped doing their work. Mr. Speaker, I understand that some of my colleagues perhaps may be concerned about setting precedent, about whether this could create a pattern of legislative fixes for every missed deadline or program delay. But I would respectfully argue that this is not about creating loopholes. It's about creating accountability and flexibility in unique circumstances. The award was scheduled. The award was budgeted, but it was not delivered. And so this bill isn't about expanding the program. It's about restoring what was already promised. How do we measure the value of a lifetime of cultural stewardship? How do we weigh the cost of a woven mat that carries 40 years of tradition? Or a chant that has been passed down orally for generations? These awards are not expenses. They are investments in our cultural continuity. These are investments for our community, for the next generation. Supporting this bill sends a message, not just to CAHA, not just to the cultural community, but to our island as a whole. It says that when the government makes a commitment, we follow through. It says that we see you, we value you, and we will not allow contributions to fade into the background because of process failures. And perhaps, more importantly, Mr. Speaker, this bill tells our younger artists, our future cultural masters, ambassadors, that their path has value, that the work of cultural preservation is honored and respected, that we do not forget that we do not delay indefinitely the recognition of those who built the foundation of who they are and of who we are. So, Mr. Speaker, I urge my colleague, let us do the right thing. Let us pass Bill number 4638 COR, not just with our votes, but with a shared understanding of what it means. It means acknowledging that time passed without recognition does not erase the work that was done. It means honoring the elders whose hands have shaped our culture, whose voices have carried our history. It means reaffirming our identity, our values, and our commitment to our people. Let's make it right. Let's move this bill forward. At this point, I would like to ask the sponsor of the bill to include me as a co-sponsor. Por favor, señor. Thank you for recognizing the woman from Bargada earlier. That's all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much, si Diyos Masi.
Si Diyos Masi. Gentleman from Sinaloa, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I stand in full support of this legislation. You know, we got to continue to recognize our those who have the different professions and abilities, and so they can pass those along to our next generation. It's very, I think it's very appropriate that we have, this is just not just Mess Chamorro, but also, you know, we have the different masters of upstairs in the loft, where you can see the master weaver, master talacero, just the different individuals that are there. And one of those is my own grandmother. She was a master costurera, a dressmaker. And I recall always going down to her house, which is where the Kamalin kitchen is at right now. And she would always be making wedding dresses and christening gowns. And I would always be hiding under her swinger sewing machine as she pedaled away sewing. And I would always just look in amazement at how she can just have the individuals come in, look at them once, and then continue to make their dresses. They come in to get fitted, and right on the first time, it's always just amazing how she did that. And I think it's very important that we continue to recognize our elderly, and actually just all those who have mastered a profession, so that we can continue that tradition on. Yeah, so I stand in full support of this legislation, and I ask my colleagues for their support as well, and for the author, if he can also include me as a co-sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Any other senator wishing to? The author of the bill, Senator from Talafofo, you can close. Don't forget your amendments.
Si Diyos Masi, Mr. Speaker, and again, I'm very grateful to my colleagues for their support of the measure. And, you know, many of the potential nominees, many of the living, yet undeclared masters of the arts are Sainas, are Manamko. So I would just urge CAHA to move as quickly as they can to recognize and accept and issue Masters of the Arts Awards, as many of our Manamko, as you know, are not going to be with us for much longer, unfortunately. And in other regions, even in Japan, I was just doing some research last night, they are recognizing a lot of masters of their arts, because many of them are up in the years or elderly, and you know, time is very precious. And so again, I thank my colleagues for the support of the measure, and I hope that we can get it passed so that CAHA can move immediately with not just the awarding of the 2018-2022, but you know, next year again, they're going to have to issue awards. And I wanted to, I hope I have time, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to just read into the record So CAHA initially named 55 masters, and then they awarded, through this law every 4 years, the additional ones. So I just wanted to go through this list and recognize Master Costurera, dressmaker, the late Dolores Adat. Master Hatsadot Hotnun Antigu, outside oven builder, Joaquin and Maria Adat. Master soap maker, Joseph Adat. Master goldsmith, Vicente Aflagui. Master taladero Manyahak, Jose and Immaculata Ogun. Master Techa Magdalena Bayani. Master pandanus weaver, Elena Beneventi. Master carver, Segundo Blas. Master pescador Zuzu, Alejandro Munoz Borja. Master canoe carver, Emilio Borja. Master collector of Chamorro culture, Emilio, Monsignor Oscar Calvo. Master canoe carver, Ramon Castro Sr. Master Atupadot, Master sling maker, Francisca Celis. Master Surahanu, traditional healer, Juan Cepeda. Master Bilimbal Tuzen, instrumentalist. I did a skit way back. I don't know if you guys remember this with the, anyway, it's a fun time. Sus Crisostomo, Master Pendanus Weaver, Maria Crisostomo. Master Estelador Agadzenti, distilled liquor maker, Sus Cruz. This always reminds me of my grandmother's late brother, Tatananki. He was a songwriter. I think that's probably where I get it from, but he used to trade his songs for whiskey back in the day. Master farmer, Juan Cruz. Master goldsmith, Gregorio and Joaquin Duenas. Master Hatsadot Hotnun Antigo, Jose Estacio. Master Lanchero. I think I had some uncles who were master ranchers, even though they didn't get the official recognition. Alfred San Nicolas Flores. Master instrumentalist, harmonica, Francisco Fruncas. Master storyteller, Clotilde Gold. And I don't know if you guys remember, but before Chamorro was mandated in the schools, I would know our Chamorro teachers were coming because they would push a cart with all the books. And every time you heard those wheels rolling down the hallway, we always used to get very excited because I was actually in some classes where Clotilde Gold came and told us stories. Master Taladero, Joaquin, and Anthony Guerrero. This is a father-son combination from Chalampago. Master Belen maker, Ana Leon Guerrero. Master blacksmith, Joaquin Lujan. Master Nabajadot, knife maker, Jose Mofnas of Derido. Master Tubero, tuba maker. So it's very interesting to see how we award these awards and the different arts, you know. I mean, they very much fit into the heritage arts, you know. For example, you know, back in the day, you couldn't YouTube how to make tuba, right? You had to learn from somebody who really knew how to do it. Master hut builder, Francisco Meno. Master zapatero shoemaker, Joaquin Napati. Master Surahana, Angela Palacios. Master pescador Binadu, a master deer hunter, Jose Cruz Palacios. Master trap maker, Pedro Muña Pangilinan. Master pandanus weaver, Dolores Paulino. Master weaver, Florin Paulino. Master taladero, Jose Ponzalan. Master weaver, Rosabella Canata. Master of Chamorro dance, and this is very interesting because he's very involved with selecting the new masters, Sina Frank Rabon. Master bull cart builder, Enrique Chaco Regis. Living master weaver, Philip the monster weaver, Sablan. I don't know if you guys remember this, around the early 2000s. Philip and his brother were very prominent in, and I don't want to say a resurgence in weaving because it was always there, but definitely they were featured on the news many times as Philip, like some of the younger masters, they take what they learn traditionally and then they, you know, they put their little Manhoban spin on it. He wasn't really a Manhoban at that time, but right, that merging of the Antigua with the modern is always such a wonder to behold. Master taladero fishnet maker, Vicente Salas Sablan. Juan Alvarez San Nicolas. Master pescador Fanihi. We will never recognize another master fruit bat hunter. Rosita San Nicolas of Inalahan, master shrimp maker. Shrimp trap maker. I'm pretty sure she makes good shrimp too. Carmen Santos, Master Storyteller. Rosario Santos, Master Weaver. Gennaro Saralu, Master Umpty. Juan Tyron, Master Instrumentalist on the accordion of Talafofo. Ignacio Beno Timinglo, Master Hut Builder and Rope Maker. If you ever been down to Gefpago and Inalahan, they actually have a demonstration where they show, where they used to have a demonstration where they show how the rope was made back in the Antes Guantes times. Robert Philip Taitano, Master Ifit Carver. Regina and Jesus Terlahi, Master Suruhana and Suruhanu. And, you know, the good senator from Sinania is right. Up in that hallway upstairs, we are lined with a lot of the posters of the Kaha Masters. And it would take me a long time to get out of this building early in the previous term, because as I was walking down the hall to leave work, I'd always stop and kind of read these, you know, very, very insightful and, more importantly, inspiring stories. And, you know, I was just on the phone with the chair of Kaha, Ms. Monica, this morning, and there isn't a dedicated website or platform where you can go and you know, find out more about all of these names. And so I also encourage Kaha to give that further recognition so that our young people can go and, you know, maybe get the master's book or go to a website and read more about the masters. Albert Tapasnia, Master Turtle Hunter. I'm also sure we'll never name another one of those. Master Weaver, Lucia Torres. Master Tattoo Artist, Maria Yatar. Master Salt Maker, Margarita Meno Yoshida. And this of Inalahan, my grandmother used to tell me the stories in Maleso Kaneni Road. They used to make salt, and all of the little kids, they would each get a bucket. And if you know where Kaneni Road is, it's very close to the ocean. So the little kids would go and they would get their bucket of the salt water, and they would come back and they would pour it in the big cauldron, and they would make salt. And the family that made the salt always did good, because we would trade nice salt for dairy, and the salt back then was used to preserve the meat. Master Dendero Recuerdos de Ayer. And then Master Cantan Chamarita singers, Assumption Cruz, Lourdes Taidagui, Florin Paulino, Vicente Meno, Maria Crisostomo, Marcela Uggan, Angelina Anderson, and Clotilde Gold. Master Blacksmith, Francisco Corned Beef Lazama. Master Carver, Greg T. Pangilinan. Master of Chamorro Dance, Eileen Meno. Josefa Cruz Certeza, Surahana, Master Traditional Healer. And these last four are living masters. Leonard Iriarte, Master of Chamorro Chant. Joe Beneventi, again, Master Carver, Body Ornamentation. Vince Regis, Master of Chamorro Dance. And Sina Peter Anadera, Master Storyteller. So, Sijus Masi, again, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the bill. And I did want to, I'm not clear on the process for adding the co-sponsors, but I did want to add Senator Calvo, the chair of the committee, and again express my gratitude for getting the bill through on this first session. Also, Senator Terlahi, Senator Adat, Senator Perez, Senator, oh yeah, she is, sorry, Dispensa. Senator Tina Munya Barnes, and also
point of
sorry,
information.
yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
I apologize. While you
They want to be the co-sponsors,
I
so
understand,
yeah.
but by standing rules, you have to
Is there a
be
limit?
present. No, you have, by standing rules, you have to be present to be
Okay,
recognized as
yeah,
co-sponsor.
so can everybody present if there's no objection? That seems way easier.
Okay.
Okay, so again,
So there's a motion on the floor to amend, add co-sponsors. Senator Shelley Cowell, Senator Teresa Lai, Senator Tel Taidegui, Senator Sabina Perez, Flores Perez, Senator Sean Gumatauto, Senator Sabina Salas Matanani, Senator Vice Speaker Tony Ada, Senator Jesse Lohan, and myself. On the motion, any objection? No objections, so carried.
thank you. Thank you again, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to speak on the bill. I thank my colleagues for their support and their discussion on it, and I, at this time, would like to motion to place the bill into the third reading file.
On the motion to place the bill to the third reading, any objections? No objections? So ordered. Colleagues, we're going to go ahead and recess for the night and we'll come back in at 9. However, before we go, there are 2 areas that I want to be able to talk. In order to avoid disruptions with the legal counsel and the clerk during the deliberations, please make sure that your amendments are ready, proffered, and ready to go before the bill gets heard, before the bill is deliberated. Okay? Secondly, is so that there is no confusion. Remember, this is being recorded and digitally. When there is a motion, okay, the only, unless there is an objection to a motion, otherwise, don't say anything. Because your no objection can be perceived as an objection. Okay? So, if there is a motion and you have no objection to the motion, please do not shout out no objection, because it can be construed and perceived as objection. And we don't want that to happen. Okay? So with that, we're going to recess until 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, and we'll start off with Bill 47-38 COR. All right? So we're in recess.